Yo, what's up, everyone? How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone's doing good. Just real quick, how does my mic sound? I did some things yesterday with my microphone. I forgot to announce I was going live. So hopefully everything is coming through and through both channels. Hopefully everyone can hear everything. Should sound better than it did before, and I should be able to hear people better than I did before. Let me just announce to everyone that we're live. I know I said I wasn't going live today, but I got home and I found out I'm not going to training. Physio said I got to take some time to heal. So I'll be home. So I figured, well, I might as well go live. Might as well do my job. You can hear me breathe. So is it too loud? Do I need to turn it down a bit? I could do that. I could turn it down. That's no problem. Also, make sure you're smashing the like button, sharing the live, doing all the things that you need to do. Now, you like it? It's good? Okay, we'll leave it just as crispy as it is. And the best part about it is I can turn myself up now so I can hear myself, turn it down. My main issue from before is that my audio was exactly what you heard. So sometimes I would hear things too loud and you guys would be like, oh, it's not loud enough. And now I have like my own audio that I have, so it doesn't affect what you guys hear. That was so weird for me. You guys didn't hear what I was doing. But yeah, it's much better on my end. And it should also be better for other people as they come in. What was I going to say? Forgot what I was going to say. Oh, also, for anybody watching on YouTube, I have decided to do this. I don't know how you guys feel about this. If you feel like it's bad and I shouldn't do it, please let me know. I turned the chat to subscribers only. And this, I hope, is going to stop the keyboard warriors, right? Because it's going to force them to subscribe or join to have a conversation. One of the two things. I hope it's going to prevent those people that are just in the chat talking crap. Unfortunately, we can't do that on TikTok. I mean, we could do it on TikTok, but TikTok isn't the biggest fan of that. Yeah, that new ASMR mic, good move. You guys think it's a good move? Switching it to subscriber only. Oh, I always forget. I got to click live on the shorts. Let's do that. Because it's like different, so you got to do it differently. Streaming software is connected. Why? There you go. Good. All right, go live. All right, today's topic, I think which will be good. And I want to play around with this because I'm playing with this idea. I reached out to Than about it. He told me it's a bad idea, but I'm going to try it anyway. We're going to do... it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco. That's going to be the topic today. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco. So I think that's a fair point, and we're going to see if anybody has any contention on that. If you think I'm wrong, or if you don't think it is rational, you think anybody who's a Christian who believes it, then come up and let me know. You can join the conversation by clicking the multi-guest button, or you can join by clicking the link pinned in the chat, or you can join by, if you're watching on YouTube Shorts, it's in the description, depending on where you're watching. Let's do a quick prayer before we get going. Lord, thank you for this day and the blessings. Thank you for all that you've given. I ask that you take this live and you do what you will with it. Allow it to reach the people that need to be reached and just continue to bless it and continue to walk with us. You are good. Allow the Holy Spirit to move through us and not say anything that is not edifying or good in your eyes. Let the love of you move through us today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Hallelujah. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Too wordy? But the problem is I made it too wordy because everybody always wants to argue semantics of like the definitions. Well, that's not what you mean with this. So it's like, I think this makes it so people can't like argue the semantics. But we can change it. What do you guys think? Does everybody think it's too wordy or is it just you? Is it just you? Why do I have Vader in the background? Because I like Darth Vader. Vader's dope. That's literally the only reason. Make it more rage baity. I'm open to suggestions. So if you guys have suggestions, put it. If I see something, I will. I'll put it in. So you like Darth Dawkins? Not really. No, I haven't really watched much Darth Dawkins. If I put Darth Vader in the background, am I automatically going to be associated to Darth Dawkins? That's a sad thought. He appropriated Darth Vader. I don't share my denomination. I consider it private and personal. No stop revolving around something. No what? No stop revolving amounts. No stop revolving around something no one ever can prove. Huh? No stop revolving around some nothing can prove. Okay. You can't reject the resurrection without rejecting history. Modern Brain says, yo, what's up? Make the title Christianity's true, everything else is wrong. We can do that. I don't want to do it today. I'm not interested in the rage bait today. I really actually have a goal here that I want to see comes to fruition.
Right.
Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I'm 18.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Okay, no, but what do you mean when you say it's rational? Do you mean, like, what do you mean by that?
That is logically consistent, logically sound. It's not irrational. It has good meaning behind it.
Okay, no problem. Same as it's rational, like it's rational. Would you be able to provide me external evidence outside the Bible?
Why does it have to be outside the Bible?
Because again, are you going to prove your own religion using a circular? Or are you going to prove with external sources?
Yeah, using the Bible isn't circular.
Using the Bible is circular because it's, again, this
it would be circular. It'd be circular if I said something along the lines of like, the Bible is true because it says it's true. That would be like circular, right? But using the Bible to prove historical documents, it's not circular, right?
Wait,
you're just taking historical documents and using it to prove history.
Yeah, so sir, okay. So yes, correct. That would be circular, the thing you said. But what you're trying to say when you're saying that the resurrection is rational is you're saying because the Bible says that the resurrection what they think, then it must also be logical, correct?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Okay, no problem. So you are using a circular. So the way you did it.
It's not circular. That's not. Can you give me the definition of a circular? Can you give me the definition of a circular?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so when you're justifying your point using the exact same source, so like the exact same source.
That's not the definition of a circular fallacy. Circular fallacy is when you use the conclusion in the premise.
Okay, yeah, you are using a conclusion in the premise.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. You're saying, according to the Bible, because it says that the resurrection is rational, that actually means that it's rational. The Bible doesn't
say the resurrection is rational.
Not word by word, but you're trying to use the Bible.
That's not what I'm saying, though, right? So here's what I'm saying, right?
Are you serious?
Let me make my argument, right? Instead of trying to straw man me, let me actually make it.
Okay, no problem.
There is enough historical evidence to say that Jesus Christ resurrected.
Where's the proof? Show me.
Yeah, so this would be in the scripture: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Again, you're using circular. Again, that's like
not the definition of circular, my friend.
So wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Let me just say something. Let's see if there's a problem.
Just real quick. How do you prove historical information?
Oh yeah, so we would use a chain of narration to prove it.
Okay. Well, we have apostolic succession.
Okay. Can you name me one?
Yeah, so you can simply just go to New Advent and see the Pope and see all the apostolic succession going all the way back to Christ.
Sir, come on, please. Let's be real here. There is no external evidence.
So are you saying the only way to affirm something in history is through a chain of narration?
Well, I mean, so for example, something to be authentic, sure.
Okay, so you don't believe Napoleon Bonaparte existed?
No, again, yeah, but we can prove that.
Where's the chain of narration with Napoleon Bonaparte?
No, again, sorry. So when we know something is true is when we've got.
Can you give me the chain of narration for Napoleon Bonaparte? Because that was your original claim, is that you need a chain of narration to prove something is historical, right?
Again, sir, I haven't studied into that, so I don't know. You have to name me someone.
Can you give me the chain of narration for Gaius Caesar?
But yeah, I haven't studied into that.
What about Julius Caesar?
Again, I haven't studied into
Abraham Lincoln?
I haven't studied. Like again, these people.
Okay, so you basically have a standard that you haven't applied to anything except that what you think is the Quran. So
no.
Again, what is the method? What is the method in determining something as a historical document?
Can I speak? Is okay?
If you actually give an answer to the question I'm asking.
Now again, listen. Again, I never said you have to show an historical evidence for this. Again, what I said simply is
you said it was a chain of narration.
Stop.
I'm going to cut you off if you're not being consistent in your argumentation.
Are you serious?
You said you said it was a chain of narration. So again, are you changing that? It's not a chain of narration?
Again, I said the way that I would prove something is authentic is using a chain of narration. However, what I said
is that the only method?
Can I finish speaking? Because then you want to speak
But
as
but
well.
you
So
don't
if
want to address the
if you let
question
me
I'm asking
if
you.
you let me
So
finish,
is that
sir.
the only method?
Again, I'm trying to tell you the other method.
Okay, what's the other method?
Okay, no problem. So there's simple ways. There's using a chain of narration,
Hmm.
or simply having something at the time of Jesus who actually affirms this happened. These are two things.
Yeah, so
We can
that
easily.
would be the
But,
Bible.
but okay, again, no, the Bible again, sir. You're
Why
trying
can't
to
you use the
justify.
Bible?
I'll tell you. Let me please 1 second.
Uh-huh.
Again, you don't understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying you're trying to prove something within the Bible, and you're using the Bible to prove it.
Right.
And
So
at the
you,
same time,
right. So for
what's that?
example, if I wanted to prove that Napoleon Bonaparte existed, I would use the historical documents that had Napoleon Bonaparte in it or was
Sorry, again, there's,
documented in,
there's a
right?
difference. Sorry, listen. There's a difference
What's the
between,
difference?
bro. Okay, so I'll tell you. The
Hmm.
difference is, wait, for example, these gospels, are they eyewitnesses?
John and Matthew would be.
Okay, no problem. Are the historical documents, are they eyewitnesses?
Most historical documents through history are not eyewitness.
Okay, no problem. So again, what external sources do you actually have from the
But
time of
again, you just
Jesus?
keep saying external sources. You haven't given me a reason why I need external sources.
Because you're using a circular. That's
That's
the
not
whole point.
circular. You don't know the definition of
Yes, it
circular.
is.
The definition of circular is using the conclusion in the premise.
Again, but sir, that's what you're doing. What?
What is my conclusion?
Your conclusion is that
Mhm.
it's rational to believe that Jesus is resurrected
Okay, so what is my
because of the
premise?
Bible.
That's
Because
not my
of what? Yeah.
conclusion.
What's yeah? Wait,
That's
so
the
what's your
premise.
conclusion? Tell me.
You're conjoining my premise, and my
So
conclusion.
what's your conclusion
The
then?
premise is there's enough historical evidence to say Jesus Christ resurrected. Or the premise is there's enough historical evidence. The conclusion is it's rational to believe that Jesus Christ resurrected.
Okay. Now, what historical evidence do you have,
The Bible.
sir? No offense to you or anything. This again, you're trying to say
You're
I don't
not giving
understand the
me a
definition,
reason to reject the Bible.
but because it's not authentic. Not in my belief anyway. I don't believe that yours is authentic.
What does it mean by authentic?
Yeah. So when I'm saying like it's not authentic, there's
Uh-huh.
no proof of its authenticity.
But what do you mean by non-authentic?
Yeah, again, so it's not like got a strong chain of narration.
That's not a definition of non-authentic. What is the
I never
definition
said
that
that.
you use? What
I'm
makes
telling you
something
one
authentic?
second,
What
one
makes
second.
something non-authentic?
Okay, again, I'm telling you. I'm saying it's not authentic because there's not enough proof to
No,
prove it's
you're giving
authentic.
me okay, what is
Bro,
the definition of something not being authentic?
I'm telling no. Listen. I'm saying it's not. I'm saying it's not authentic, and I'm giving you a
I
reason
know
why.
you're saying,
What?
I know, okay, you're giving me,
Bro,
you're saying it's not authentic and you're giving me a reason why it's not authentic. What I'm asking for is the definition of making something not being authentic.
yeah. So when there's not enough proof to justify it's true.
When there's not enough proof to justify it's true. So how are you weighing
Yes.
proof here?
Yeah. So there's no chain of narration.
Okay, so
The
chain of narration is the only way that you determine something is historical?
I mean, or if it's
Because
consistent.
as far as I could tell, vast majority of things in history do not have a chain of narration.
Well, again, or if it's consistent. That's if you heard me the second time.
Or
Or
if
if it's
it's
also
consistent.
consistent.
Or
Correct.
if it's consistent. Okay, so the
So
vast
if it's
majority of things in
consistent,
history are not
1 second.
consistent.
1 second. I said if it's, for example, we're talking about God. We're not talking about, for example, people in history. I'm saying
I'm not
simply,
making a
it's
dogmatic or religious claim. I'm making a historical claim.
no, okay, again, but no. Wait, what? Wait, repeat
I'm
what you
not
just said.
making a dogmatic or religious claim. I'm making an historical
You are
claim.
making a religious claim. It's
I'm
both.
making historical claim.
Yeah, again, is your
This is not a
religious claim based
this
on
is not a
history?
theological discussion. This is an historical
1 second.
discussion.
Yeah. 1 second. Is your religious conclusion based on history?
So I can conclude that Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead. That does not mean I have to have a religious conclusion.
Wait, from
it.
history?
Yes,
From
I'm saying it's a
history?
historical claim.
Okay, yeah. So if I asked you simply, what sources do you actually have? Or we can even go to your Bible. How many people seen the resurrected Jesus?
21.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Have
how
you got
many
any
people
source?
saw it? Over
Yes.
500, but we have 21.
Okay, no problem.
We have 21 eyewitness accounts.
Really? Can you show me?
You want me to go through all 21?
I want
right
you to
now?
show me except from Paul. Don't show me another one.
Why would it be except from Paul?
Wait, 1 second. Yeah,
You're just giving me special
then,
pleading.
1
You're just
second,
stating
then,
I
no,
don't
listen,
want
listen.
you're saying give me sources except for the sources that are sources.
No, I'm saying, can you show me another eyewitness of the resurrection?
Yeah, so Mary Magdalene,
Okay, what sources do you have on her?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Sir, wait 1 second. Wait. So okay, so you're going to base it off these four people. Okay, so you're going to use the Bible to prove that someone else knew something, but you don't actually have external sources to prove it.
Yeah, but you keep saying I need
Oh
external
my!
sources, but you haven't given me a reason why.
I gave you a reason why, because you have to have a
Okay, so
justification
here's the
to
thing.
prove that
Okay,
this
here's
is
the thing.
true.
Here's the thing. Here's why your argument is stupid. When
Go
did the
on, tell me.
Bible become the Bible?
Yeah. So wait, what do you mean? When did it?
When
What do you
did
mean,
the
like when it was
Bible become
compiled?
the Bible?
What do you mean by that? Like when it was compiled?
When was it put into a singular book?
Okay, yeah. So it would have been like 400 years after Jesus.
Phenomenal, great. So, be 400 years before or after Jesus, for those 400 years, Matthew would be an external document from John, right?
But again, you don't class it as an
Can you answer
external
the question,
document.
please?
Not today. You wouldn't class it.
No,
No.
I didn't say today. I said for those 400 years, Matthew would be an external document from John, correct?
Okay, in the first year, sure. Why not?
Okay, so now you're just doing, now you're just special
Now,
pleading.
now I'm going to ask you. Do
Eric
you
Barlow,
count what?
Eric Barlow came in with $5, says he would rather trust a document 600 years after Christ than documents written during the time of the apostles.
Sure, yeah, because there's more justification for our sources. Okay, now it's simple.
You
So
haven't given any
let's just
justification for your
yeah
source.
yeah because again this isn't the topic, is it? So now it's simple. Okay, today do you class the Gospels, these four Gospels, as one Bible, or do you class it as multiple Bibles?
A Bible, you can't have multiple Bibles. Bible
Okay,
by
so
the
it's
word
one.
means collection
Okay,
of books.
nice, no problem. Yeah, so it's one Bible. It's not an
Just
external source
repeat
from
what
the
I
Bible.
said.
Yeah, so you said that these four Gospels, the Bible, which just means a collection of books.
Okay,
So it
cool.
would
So
be classed
this
as
is
one
like
Bible.
you saying, is there one library or multiple libraries?
Yeah, but
You
there
realize
is
how
there,
stupid you sound.
but there is such thing as multiple
There
libraries.
are
That's the
such
one.
thing as multiple libraries, sure, but what you realize how stupid you sound.
Yeah.
You're saying that a library is a singular source.
Wait, what? Huh?
That's what you're saying.
No, no. The Bible is for example, when I said
Hmm.
like for example, you said before, you were saying to me, I said, what external sources do you have outside of the Bible? Then you said, okay, would Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John,
Okay,
would these
fine, cool.
stop
Okay,
1 second.
let's just take your argument. Fine. Okay, what external sources do you have out of libraries that anything in history happened?
What do you mean? There's books and books upon it, and most of the libraries,
Outside, no,
if you're
those are
from,
all in libraries.
yeah, I
What
agree.
are
Yeah.
your external sources for anything in history outside of libraries of anything that in
Yeah,
history
so
ever
they would,
happened?
sure, they would be external sources to justify this
What
like for
external
example,
sources?
I don't like for example like evidence for it. Let's do that.
What? But those are in libraries. Those evidence are
Sure,
documented and put in
sure,
libraries. You're just giving me stuff
sure.
inside a library. Give me an
Yeah,
external
sure.
source outside of a library.
Yeah, the writer itself,
The what?
the writers itself, the
The
people who wrote
writers
it.
are
Sure.
dead. It's in history.
Sure. Yeah, but there again, there's evidence. It's literally right
What
there. It's in
evidence?
front of you. It's right in front of you. The book is literally there.
But those books are all in libraries. Can you give me a source outside of a library?
Again, this is just not following. Stop. This is
This
not
is the
following. So
argument that you're
yeah,
giving.
1 second. No,
Right? So
no. Now you're
The Bible is a collection of historical documents. And you're saying,
sure.
I want something that's not inside that collection of historical documents.
Sure. Wait
This is a
1 second. But a
ridiculous
library.
argument.
Yeah. So okay, there's no problem. Is there more books within a library than there is in the Gospels? Not the Gospels, sorry, inside of the Bible.
Yes.
Okay, no problem. How many books do you have inside of the Bible?
66 to 73.
Okay, how many Gospels do you have?
4.
Okay, no problem. How many books are inside of a library?
I don't know. Depends on the library.
Oh, yeah, okay. So see, now this is backfiring on you. This
How's
whole
that
analogy is,
backfiring?
I'll tell you, because you're trying to
But
compare your
that doesn't
Bible.
change. That doesn't change. Hold on. Just because there's more in the library doesn't change the fact that it can still be taken as a document. You could say it's weak evidence,
Yeah,
but
but
you
sure,
can't say that it's not evidence.
okay, so it's simple. Inside of a library, these like authors who written the books, is there also more books from that author? Usually?
Or, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the
Okay,
author.
sometimes yes, sometimes no. Are
Like
most of the
Paul, we
books, it
have
depends.
multiple books from Paul, but we only have one book from Matthew.
So, yeah, sir, but yeah, so you're
Eric
saying
Barlow
multiple
came in with
books?
$5, says he's confusing canon and collection. We differ on canons, but we also argue that the core 66 books, roughly the canon of Saint Athanasius.
Yeah, okay, so can I continue? Just I was letting you
You
read
haven't
that.
answered a
Okay,
single question. You're just gish galloping all over the place.
neither did you. when I asked
I've
you.
answered.
But
I've
it's,
answered your direct question.
yeah, the question is literally what's the difference between the library and the Bible? That was the whole point. But it's fine. Let's just
Well, that would
continue
be
with the
the
thing.
collection, right? They're gonna have
Okay,
different
so it
collections,
depends
and the
of
amount
inside
in the
of.
collection. That's a direct answer.
So here's the difference. Okay, is the Bible something which actually happens in real life?
What? That's not even a
Like
real
for example,
sentence.
let me say this. 1 second. Is this like an actual, for example, it's written from people who actually experience these type of things?
That's also not a sentence.
What do you mean?
That's not an incoherent sentence.
I'm saying is it not based on a real time thing? Like
What?
what happened? Is the Bible, so these gospels, are they based on actual real time?
That's also not a coherent sentence. You want to try a fifth time?
You know what I'm saying. Please answer the question.
No, I don't. I have no clue what you're saying. You're saying, are the gospels
Yes, you
based
do.
off something real time? That's not a coherent sentence.
Oh, okay. I'll say this another time. Is these gospels which you have, is it based on someone's life? Let's do that.
Yes, they're based off someone's
Okay,
life.
no
They're
problem.
sui biographies, SUI,
no
according to Paul Rhodes.
Okay, no problem. Is every single book with inside of the library based on people's life?
No.
Is it not? So is it based on people's life experience?
Is what based on people's life experience?
So yeah, so the books inside of
Which
the library.
books? Some books, yes. Some
Exactly
books,
the point. Exactly the point.
You're not making a point. You're not even putting together a coherent sentence, my friend. I'm going to move on
Listen,
soon
okay,
because you're not even making sense.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the reason why I said this.
You
Because
didn't
again,
say
you're using...
anything that made sense. Can you
Oh my gosh,
re-clarify
okay,
it?
so-
Don't give me a
okay,
reason why you said it until you can actually say it in a way that makes sense.
Okay, I've just told you. For example, a library is not based on someone's life usually. It's usually based on, like, for example,
there are
fake
biographies
things.
in a library.
There is, but yes,
hold
correct.
on,
There
hold
is
on.
biographies.
Okay,
But
hold
is it
on.
only biographies?
Hold on, just pause for a second. JJ came in and said, "Did you ask his age? How old are you again?"
18.
Okay. Yeah. Are you making the claim that there is not biographies in libraries?
Never said that. Never said that.
Are you making the claim that libraries' main purpose is not to share biographies?
I never said that.
Then what the hell is your claim?
I'm saying you're using an analogy on
I'm
a
not
library.
using an analogy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yes, you are. What?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
I didn't say that the Bible is like a library. That's not what I said. It's not an analogy.
Okay. Okay, no problem. So do you want me to restate it one more time so you can actually understand?
Nobody can. Okay, just real quick. I just want to say, chat. Does anybody in the chat actually understand what this young man is saying? Okay, so it's not just me. So I appreciate your time. God bless. Have yourself a great day.
This guy's not real.
They always do like this awkward like cope laugh when I'm like, I'm gonna move on. It's always like just weird every time they do it. Osama, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, 21, sir.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Yeah, bro, I would begin. First of all, you stated multiple times your source is the Bible, your historical source is the Bible, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I would say it's the burden of proof is on you to prove to me that the Bible is a reliable historical source. Can you do that?
That's not my claim. My claim here is it's rational to believe that he resurrected. It's not to prove to you that it's a reliable historical source. So, for example, I can make this claim. I can make it simple. The collective scholarship believes that Jesus Christ was real, existed, crucified under Pontius Pilate, that his followers genuinely believe that he rose from the dead. This information comes from the scripture. The scripture also says that Jesus Christ resurrected. So if you can believe A, then you can also believe B. So it's rational to believe that he resurrected from the dead.
Hold on a minute. Your information is based on the text within the Bible, correct?
This is the power of gnosis over logic. Yeah, there is some external documents that you would expect to see if the claims in the Bible are true.
Wait, the text which you rely on, the historical evidences which you rely on, are they entirely within the Bible, or are there also external sources?
No, not entirely.
The main evidences are within the Bible?
The primary source is the Bible, yes.
All right. In order to rely on those sources, we would have to prove at least that is historically reliable.
Yeah, so are you going to disagree with the historic consensus that Jesus Christ was a real person, was crucified under Pontius Pilate? This followers genuinely believe that he rose from the dead, and that they most likely believe that the tomb was empty. That John the Baptist was a
No, no,
real
but
person and was
listen to me, listen
executed.
to me.
Hold on, I'm not done, please. That John the Baptist
Okay,
was
okay.
was a real person and executed under Herod. This is the scholarly consensus. This is what is widely agreed upon, in again in scholarship. So, are you going to disagree with these claims?
Um, First of all, I do not take the Bible as a reliable historical source, which is why I'm focusing on this
That's not
point
the
so much.
question I asked you. Can you please address the
No, no.
question I asked you?
The reason I'm focusing on this point is because your claim
If you're not
of
going to
Jesus'
address the question I
resurrection.
asked you, then it shows that you're arguing in bad faith, and I think
What
we
is your
should move
question? Sorry,
on.
can you repeat that?
No,
Can you
I'm
repeat
not
your
going to
question,
repeat
please?
it because it took me like 2 minutes to get it out, and that means you weren't listening. So you're arguing in bad faith, so I appreciate your time, man. God bless. Have yourself a great day, and I hope the Lord finds you.
Very much, sir. All right, bye bye.
Only sub to say this. Thank you. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Jesse Joy. Jesse Joy. All right, God bless. Wow, what a name. Just imagine getting on TikTok and say, this is the name I'm going to pick. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey man, I'm 34. How are you?
I'm good, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco.
Hey, so yeah, I hope you spend some time and just give me a second because I definitely you know have my thoughts, but I was actually wondering if you could explain why you think it's logical for me, real quick.
Yeah, I'd say it's rational because there's enough historical evidence to believe that Jesus Christ was a real person, that he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, that his followers genuinely believe that he rose from the dead, that his tomb was empty, that John the Baptist was real. Most of these sources, most of the ways we get that information is through Scripture. The Scripture also makes the claim that Jesus Christ resurrected. It seems to me that the reason that you'd accept one and deny the other is because of your priors. So I'd say, hey, your priors can change based off an individual basis, but if we could say it's rational to believe in one, then it's rational to believe in the other.
Yeah, yeah, and so you're saying, I mean, all we can have really is I'm sorry, my brain is it's terrible. All we can have is the records of people who witnessed it, right? I'm just trying to rationalize in my like if like what you're saying is true, obviously, and I'm in agreement. If we're saying that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, like obviously he could be able to resurrect. And the Bible is not a science textbook. I'm just trying to wrap my head around, I guess that's kind of the miracle of it, and that's why people can't accept it really. But I'm just trying to wrap my head around like how that could even just like be possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it didn't.
Like with a human body.
The question
Yeah,
didn't
like
make
with
sense.
it,
I
like with a
apologize.
like with no, no, no. That's my fault. Like with the Virgin Mary, or
Uh-huh.
sorry, Immaculate Conception and the Resurrection, there's something like impossible that happens in reality, and I think that's what makes it hard for people
Right.
to accept.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be based off your priors, your presuppositions on what you can believe is possible and not possible, and that's going to be subjective and based off the individual. So if you have the prior belief that miracles just
Yeah,
cannot happen, then it doesn't matter how much evidence that I show you.
I totally agree. Okay, all right. I'm going to agree with you on everything. So thanks for your time, brother.
No problem, man. God bless. Guys, if you want to join the conversation, I see that we have about 500 people watching in the shorts. I have subs only chat on because I'm trying to avoid keyboard warriors, people who just want to hang out in the chat and talk crap there. If you want to join the conversation, there's a link in my description so you can join there and we can have a conversation about this. If you're watching on normal TikTok or normal YouTube, sorry, you can just click the link pinned in the chat. If you're watching on TikTok, of course, you can click the multi-guest button. These are great ways to come up, have a conversation. Today's topic, it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco. Please make sure that you are subscribing, that you're hitting the like button, doing all the things that you need to do. And let's move on to the next person. Also be patient with me because like I haven't eaten today.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
24.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when a taco.
Okay. You mean rational as in reasonable and logical?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't look at
Okay.
somebody who believes in Jesus' resurrection and like say, hey, you're an idiot or something like along those lines.
Okay. And resurrection as in the literal sense and not the figurative sense?
That he literally rose from the dead. As if you put a camera outside his tomb, you would have seen him walk out of it.
Okay. So I say it's more figurative and symbolic and not literal. And my reasoning is that because a literal story can contain figurative elements, a story being literal does not make the figurative language used in that story also literal.
Yeah, but
Kind
the
of
problem
like,
is you have to find a way to distinguish between what is literal and not literal. And you look at cultural cues for this, and there's no reason to believe that in the story that the resurrection is considered not literal, considering that we see in history that Christians genuinely believe that he rose from the dead and were willing to be executed on that fact. It doesn't seem that through history and if we're applying proper hermeneutics, anybody applied this to be allegorical by any sense. And so I'd see this as a good reason to reject it as allegorical.
okay. I disagree. I say yes, there were Christians and Christians that did
Can
believe
you
that
give
was
me an early
symbolic.
Christian that believed this was allegorical?
Manny.
Who?
Manny.
Who's Manny?
From the 3rd century. He considered himself an apostle of Jesus Christ.
Who's Manny? Like, where do I find Manny? Where was he from? What church was he in? What made him a Christian?
Oh, he
Because
was in the
I can
3rd
reference
century.
the Gnostics that also say that it was allegorical. But what I mean by early Christians is we're talking about like in the 1st, 2nd century. For example, we have documents about Pliny, who used to light Christians on fire for believing that he resurrected. We also have documents between Pliny and I think it was Tacitus, talking about how to get them to stop worshiping this Jesus who they believed that he rose from the dead. Eric Barlow came in 2 bucks, says it's not irrational to believe in the supernatural. Amen. And then Van came in 499, says, John, Monday title, Islam is religious appropriation. Saw on Wonderland's stream, Word stream, and thought it was fire. Maybe. I don't want to jack other people's ideas though. That's biting.
Okay. So you're only using the Orthodox definition and nothing heretical or anything extra biblical like the Gnostics
Yeah, the Gnostics
as
were
evidence?
widely regarded as appropriation. Like in scholarship, it's not even contested that their documents are not authentic.
What do you mean by appropriated?
It means that they stole people's names for authorship to write their own ideas into Christianity. So,
Could you give an example?
for example, no scholar believes that Thomas actually wrote Thomas in the Gnostic texts, or Mary wrote Mary.
Do scholars also believe, isn't that the same thing with Orthodox as well, with the apostles writing their own stuff as well?
No.
Okay, because I was hearing like Luke and stuff like that was not actually written by the namesake of Luke
Yeah,
and
so
stuff like that.
it's debated in scholarship. But my argument is that there is no scholar, not a single scholar, that thinks the Gnostic texts have original authorship. It's debated. It's a minority view, right, in scholarship that we have original authorship, and this is starting to become more popularized as more scholars are making good arguments towards the case and actually pointing out the dogmas that are happening in specific scholarship right now. Modern Brain came in with 20 bucks, says, blessing your ministry. Thank you, Modern Brain. Appreciate you.
What would be considered an original authorship of something like Gnostics? How would you
The
classify
Gnostics
it?
can't be original authorship because their documents are written hundreds of years after the authors lived.
Could you give an example of what you mean by that?
So the Gospel of Barnabas would have been written 400 years after Barnabas died.
Okay. Okay, so those okay. Who I meant before was Manny. He was also a Gnostic, but he was also considered himself a Christian, but he was more considered a Gnostic, and he did write stuff himself as well. So does that count as original authorship?
Well, it'd be original authorship towards Manny, but I'd have no reason to say that Manny has any sort of authority or reason to believe his hermeneutics, right? If I'm looking at good hermeneutics, I want to go to the earliest sources. For example, we go to 1 Corinthians 15:3, which is the earliest source of Christianity, which is just a creed, and creeds were meant to teach a specific thing in history so people can memorize it. It specifically states that Jesus Christ resurrected, and not in a hyperbolic sense, like it was literal. It says he resurrected and appeared to Cephas, and then appeared to the 12, and then appeared to the 500. This statement is clearly showing that this is more than just some sort of metaphor.
Is that only in the Bible, or is there other things that support that?
Yeah, like I quoted Pliny and Tacitus before that support this as they started to execute and burn Christians for believing that Jesus Christ resurrected.
Okay. Okay, so you don't really consider Gnostics as proper evidence as well? Okay, so that.
Well, it's
Okay, that
evidence
was
towards Gnosticism and what they believed.
okay, and your only opinion. Yeah, okay, so it's not specifically towards Christianity; it's just towards this separate thing. So any evidence that Catholics bring up for Christianity isn't that specifically that is specifically towards the Catholic belief and not towards Christianity as a whole.
I have no idea what that meant.
So the Gnostics speak for the Gnostics, but some Gnostics can be Christians, but Gnostics
No,
doesn't speak for
you cannot be a
Christian.
Gnostic and a Christian. These are not compatible.
Why not?
Because one affirms that Jesus Christ is living God embodied, and one denies it. These are contradictions.
Why is a contradiction bad?
Because contradictions cannot be true.
Oh, I use a different logical system with contradictions with their consistent logic and dialectism.
So what logical system do you use that holds that contradictions can be true?
Dialectism.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Can you give me an example in dialectism where a contradiction can be true?
You have paradoxes like the Zeno's paradox and the Elias paradox.
That's a vague
And
reference.
those,
I'm asking for an example
yeah.
where a contradiction can be true.
Something can be infinite and finite at the same time.
It's again, how does that work? How can something both be infinite and finite at the same time?
That is in regards to the Zeno's paradox that I was referring to before. With a line, you could say there's an infinite number between point A and point B,
Mm-hmm.
and then that is infinite, but it is also finite because it's a finite line.
No, that's just the distinction between potential and actualized infinities. You have a potential infinity there, not an actualized infinity. This is not a paradox. There's a distinction.
Okay. I had another example, but I kind of forgot it just now. But another one that is more like just kind of like accepting something being some positive and something not being that thing. Kind of like if you meet somebody and they say, I am a man and I'm also not a man, you would just be like, yeah, that is what they identify as.
No, because that's a
That makes sense?
category error. Because in one case, you're identifying the category of sex, right? Or your ontology. And then the other case, you're identifying in the category of social identity. These are two different categories, so there's no contradiction.
Oh, no, in the same category of social identifying.
Yeah, then I think it's nonsensical and it's not true.
Okay. Okay. Do Catholics speak for Christianity itself, or is it just the early Christians like Paleo Christianity?
I'm not making any sort of claim towards denominations today.
Okay.
All right, man. Anything
Okay,
else?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you. God bless.
Yep.
All right, guys, please make sure you're hitting the subscribe, like, comment, all those types of things. Again, I've turned the comments off on YouTube for subscribers only. So that way you can't be a keyboard warrior. You have to at least subscribe to my channel or come up and have a conversation. You can join the conversation by clicking the link in the description or pinned in the chat or the multi-guest button, depending on where you're watching. And yeah, we're going to bring up another guest. James, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? James. All right, man. God bless. Let's go to the next one. Mohammed, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey man, I'm 22 years old.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco.
Yeah, I just have a very quick question. How do you, me as a Muslim, I believe that, and I believe in resurrection. and I believe that someone died, but I don't believe Jesus himself died. How can you prove that Jesus himself died, even though the sources that you have of sources are kind of considered weak against other sources of other information? How
Okay,
can you
what
claim
other
that
source
Jesus
says that it
himself?
wasn't Jesus?
What?
What other source says it wasn't Jesus? You said it's
No,
weak
no,
in compared to other
I'm talking, for
sources.
example, if, yeah, if I'm comparing it with Islam, for example,
Huh?
our weakest hadith have much more reliability than the Jesus's
That's begging the question.
eyewitnesses.
Can you give me a comparison, like in another source that contradicts?
Yeah,
Because
Islam.
if you're gonna use Islam comes 600 years later. This would be actually a weaker source. Because generally in history, something that's further away from the original event becomes weaker.
Yes, yes, of course, I totally agree. But we have to agree, we have to understand that in Islam, I believe that this is from God. The book
Yeah,
that
I'm
I
not
read is
making I'm
from
not
God.
making theological claims here. I'm making historical claims.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you as a Christian believe in God, so it doesn't.
Yeah, but that
I
now
would
you're
ask the
trying
same
to push
question
me
about the
into a
Bible.
theological claim, right? Of course, if God is real, he can make a revelation through Islam. But
Yeah,
that's not the
no,
claim we're
yeah,
making.
no,
We're making a
he can make
historical claim
revelation
here.
after thousands of years.
The historical claim here is it's rational to believe that Jesus Christ resurrected. Why am I wrong?
Yeah, no, no. I am asking you, how do you know that Jesus himself was on the cross and Jesus himself died and Jesus himself resurrected?
Because
Like
all the
I
historical
believe that
documents
someone
say
was
that it was
resurrected.
Jesus.
What documents? Can you give me a
Matthew, Mark,
source?
Luke, John, Peter, Paul, James,
Okay. Oh,
Tacitus,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Josephus, the Talmud.
Yeah, good sources. Just one question, Matthew.
But
What's his surname?
my problem with having conversations with most Muslims is that you guys don't actually listen to what I'm saying. You asked me for the sources, and then while I was giving the sources, you cut me off to make an argument. Why did you
Okay,
ask me for the
continue,
sources?
continue.
Why did you? No, no, no. But my question for you now is now changing. Why did you ask me for the sources if you don't actually care to hear them?
No. I'm asking you of the sources because the sources is the information that you're getting from.
Can you please answer
So
my
you told
question?
Matthew,
Okay, I'll try one more
yeah, yeah.
time. If you don't answer my question, I'm going to move on because I'm not interested in no good, not good faith conversations today. I'm not in the mood for it.
No, no,
So why did you ask me for my sources if you're not actually interested in hearing them?
no, I'm asking you for my sources, but I'm
All
just
right. Well, God
making
bless
sure
you.
that,
Thank
that
you.
your sources are
Have
correct.
yourself a great day. Braden, hello. How are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
30. How are you doing?
I'm good, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco. Just before you
Um,
go, Adriel came in with $10. Says, "Why do people keep coming in here to debate and make claims, given they know you're going to make them define a given source? Why would you come in and make a fool out of yourself? Boggles my mind. I'm not too sure, my friend. I'm not too sure. Sorry, bro. Go
that's a
ahead.
really no. You're right, and yeah, the other guy's right too. um, so before we get started, do you know how many resurrections there have been in the Bible?
4 or 5, I think.
9.
Close.
Yeah, about halfway. Is it rational to believe that Jesus resurrected from me wrong? I mean, yeah, of course. If we start with
You still there? I lost you, man. Apologize, but God bless, and maybe we'll talk again in the future. Let's move on. Daniel, hello. How are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How old are you?
Can you hear my voice?
I can hear your voice. How
I'm
old are you?
18. I'm 18 years old.
Okay, if you're using a headset, can you unplug it?
Wait a minute. Is this clear?
Yeah, that's better. Okay, so it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco. Eric Ballo came in with $10. Says our view of history, where events are.
Yeah, I'm a Christian too, and
I'm sorry, Daniel.
yeah, I do.
There's way too much going on there. I apologize. Eric came in with $10. Says our view of history, where events are anchored in a linear time, is pretty new. Bias in the first century AD only cared about the events, not when they took place. Interesting. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. 34.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when a taco.
You had mentioned before, I guess somebody was talking about sort of the claims in the Bible being allegorical. Uh, what evidence is there of sort of like their like early Christians' intent as far as it being literal and not metaphorical or allegorical? Where, where is that?
Yeah, so this would be something like the undesigned coincidences. You got some major feedback coming happening, and I don't know if it's something turned up or.
I'm kind of turned up. I don't know what you mean, but I'm in my car. I'm parked, but I'll turn my speakers down. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you turn the speakers down, that'd be great. Yeah, so we have something like the undesigned coincidences where the Gospels are getting things historically correct that from outside sources. That feedback's driving me nuts, bro.
Hold on. Let me disconnect, dude. Don't boot me.
I didn't want to boot you.
All right. Should be good though.
Test 1 2, test 1 2. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so these undesigned coincidences where they align with other historical events correctly, then also getting geography correct and names correct. This seems that they're making the attempt to record actual historical events, and they make very big distinctions when something is allegorical. So, for example, Jesus gives parables, and he makes a very big distinction on what a parable is within the scripture itself. But then we have other things where it's talking about like how they traveled. And so we can see, for example, I think it's the Gospel of Matthew, it gives a very specific description about traveling to Galilee. I don't remember where exactly it is. I could pull up my notes if you really want to press me on it. But historians usually at first complain that this would be a long way to do it. Matthew didn't have a good understanding of the geography because it'd be better to travel in a straight line. The problem is when you pull up a topographical map of it, there's a mountain in the way. So they're actually traveling up and around the mountain, and they're also traveling next to the fresh water, which is what you would expect to see if somebody's giving an historical account.
So just because in the stories they didn't claim that they used a spaceship or like did things that they didn't do as far as traveling, then that negates or that shows the intent that.
No, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you have a document that aligns with other historical documents and seems to be giving an historical account, then you give the principle of charity and you say that they are making an historical account until proven otherwise. Right. So we don't generally say that people are guilty until proven innocent, right?
So you admit that it's a principle of charity then?
Mm-hmm. There's a principle of charity in anything that we negotiate with in history.
But so,
right? Do you often assume that people are guilty before? Do you have any evidence to it?
Well, I guess I don't agree with the premise. I don't think that those two things are one to one. But
that wasn't a premise; it was a question, and I'd appreciate if you answered it. Do you generally hold people to be guilty first?
No.
Right. So we often say things are innocent until they're proven guilty. When we look at the documents and they seem to be giving historical accounts, then we have to assume that they're historical accounts.
Yeah, but just because a murderer has some truth to his story,
you got to say murder. I don't know how we got to that word, but yeah, TOS we can't say that.
Oh, well, if whatever, continuing on, just because a part of their story is true or false, or just because a part of what they say is true doesn't make everything that they say true in the same vein.
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean.
Right. So, but then you have a burden to say, hey, these things are false because of X, Y, and Z. But the problem is when we compare the documents and we compare them to other things in history, they seem to be giving true accounts. And then if we want to stay consistent with other things that we do in history, then I think we should stay consistent in the Bible. As a matter of fact, we actually have more documentation about Jesus than most figures. Most figures in history, we do not have 4 biographies on. We may have a singular biography, usually written like 100 to 200 years later. With Jesus, we have 4 biographies that are written within the time period of his lifetime. This is huge. This is a great amount of evidence. So just simply to say that people can lie doesn't prove that they are lying.
Which is the amount of text that was written. I mean, couldn't that just be attributed to like the time and the sort of like affluence of that sort of area at that time? I don't know if like the amount of text really.
Yeah, so the amount of text when we're looking at history is astronomical. Like it's huge, right? So if we find a singular document that says that somebody crossed a river, They may or may not have. We find another document that says they crossed a river from a different source, and that probability of them crossing that river goes up, and so on and so forth.
Right. Well, so here, I guess I wanted to go back to the whole idea of sort of giving like some charity to the argument that it isn't allegorical at all. So by giving that charity, essentially you're admitting that like there are other potentials, right? Potentially, it could have been. Their intent could have been.
Yeah, the problem with giving this potentiality argument is, like I say, it's potential, that the only reason gravity exists is because pixie fairies push it together.
But you're doing it in the opposite direction.
But I'm just saying, you're making an argument that even though there's no evidence to your claim, it's potentially possible, so I can reject your evidence. So this is like me saying, well, even though there's no evidence that pixie fairies push planets together, it's possible, so therefore I can reject the evidence that it's mass pulling towards mass in space-time.
Right. But again, just because of, I mean, your evidence of, as far as giving them the charity, making the leap there.
I'm not making any leaps.
Well, that's what you're doing. Like,
that's not what I'm doing. The principle of charity is not a leap. The principle of charity is that when somebody says something, right, and they point in a certain direction, you don't automatically assume that they're lying or have misintent until you have evidence towards that direction. Doesn't necessarily mean what they say is true. And I said there's good reasons to believe what they're saying is true is because of other things that they get right aligning with history.
Well, it's not about it being true or false, right? It's not like it's either true or it's malevolent, right? If they're being allegorical, it's not a lie or them being malevolent, right?
Right, but there is no evidence towards it being allegorical, right? We know, for example, how Hebrew poetry is written or how apocalyptic literature is used. In these accounts, it's not apocalyptic or Hebrew poetry, so why would we assume it's allegorical?
I think we would assume it's allegorical in 2025 because of the like ridiculousness of the claims.
Yeah, that's begging the question.
Right. But I think it's like a black and white fallacy to just say that
things are black and white, right? This is the law of non-contradiction, excluded middle, and identity are all black and white, and this is how we should look at things. Things are either true or false. It cannot be in between.
It's literally a logical fallacy.
What's the logical fallacy?
Black and white.
That's not a logical fallacy.
Yeah, look it up. Look up the black and white logical fallacy.
Black and white logical fallacy. The black and white logical fallacy, also known as false dilemma or false dichotomy, presents only two options when there are actually more possibilities. That's not what I'm positing here. I'm saying you cannot have something that's in between, that's in the gray area, right? You're positing that there are more explanations. That's different.
Though. The allegorical argument is that there's that gray area there, where some of it is true, and
that's not a gray area. Either he did do it or he didn't do it. If it's allegorical, then he didn't do it.
Right.
Right. It's not gray area.
Some of it can be allegorical.
It can be, does not mean we have reason to believe it is. Right. Again, it can be the case that magical pixies push the moon around the Earth.
Right. Well, I would argue that that's, yeah. Okay. I mean, that was my thing, was that my core thing was trying to see what your view was on what evidence there is that, like, their intent was literal and wasn't allegorical. And I guess you answered that question for me, where it's essentially charity and based off of.
No, that is not what I said for the third time. The principle of charity is that you don't assume on the basis that people are lying. You don't start there, right? So you keep jumping to that. I'm just giving it to them for the sake of giving it to them. I say that we assume that what they're saying is true is because it aligns with other historical documents, and it seems that they're giving an historical case.
Yeah, when it comes to them walking and traveling, not resurrection or the sea parting is somewhat.
I also made the argument that we know what allegory looks like in antiquity, and they had shown no evidence for using allegorical language.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I appreciate the conversation, brother.
No problem. God bless. I always get frustrated when people like find a very pinpoint thing that I said and like hyper focus on that, like that's my entire argument. James, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hi, I'm doing great, and I'm 23.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when to taco.
Okay. So I think we can both agree that this isn't something that happens every day.
Oh,
Yeah.
I misspelled resurrected. Hold on, let me fix that.
Oh.
R-U-S-S-U-R. Is that how you spell it? I'm not very good at spelling things. R-U-S-U-R. No, I spelled it right the first time. Somebody told me I spelled it wrong. You're just lying to me. R-E-S-U-R-R-E-C-T-E-D. R-E-S-U-R-E-C-T-E-D. Yeah, that's how it's. You lied to me for no reason. How dare you? R-E-S.
Hello?
R-E-S. Hold on.
Okay.
R-E-S-U-R-E-C. Two R's. E-D. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. No, it does not happen every day.
Yeah. So I feel
Oh,
like
two R's. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Go ahead.
I feel like because of that, you need to tell me why it is rational to believe that, rather than me disproving you.
Yeah, so I'd say it's rational because we have enough historical evidence that Jesus Christ was a real person, that he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, that his followers genuinely believe that he rose from the dead, that his tomb was empty. I also say that there is enough evidence to say that they're giving true historical accounts. They're accounting actual geography, that they're recording actual names. So like Richard Bauckham shows that these people knew the names in Second Temple Judea, and they shouldn't be able to know it if they existed after. So we can put them in the time, place, location to show that they're trying to record true information. So if we can agree on all those things and say that is true, well, the same amount of evidence also says that he resurrected. So if I can believe A, then it's logically consistent to say I can believe B.
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to say I believe that Jesus existed. I believe he was crucified. I believe that the Bible, at least parts of it, are historical documents. But you must be able to see that even within the Gospels, there are certain use of metaphor, and it doesn't all have to be entirely historically.
Right. Did you listen to the last conversation I had? Because you're just repeating the same thing that happened before.
Okay, sorry. When I'm on the website thing, I can't hear the other guy talking, so I'm sorry. But I would like to say that I also, when it comes to the historicity of it, not a lot of books were written back then. And I understand it's a big event, so they want to.
Well, lots of books were written back then, but we lost a lot of them in antiquity. So, for example, the burning of the library, we lost a lot of documentation, and then most things just wither away because of time.
Yeah. So, what are you saying, that if we still had, if these things weren't written on papyrus, so they biodegraded over time or got lost or burnt, whatever, we would have even more accounts saying that Jesus was rose from the
I'm not
dead?
making any claim. I'm not making a claim. I'm just saying that we've lost a lot of antiquity. It's not that it wasn't written. Like, and granted, obviously, there's not as much written as it is now because people are hyper literate now, but there is a lot lost in antiquity.
Yeah, I've got no doubt about that, but it's not really relevant unless you think that there would be more evidence since antiquity.
Well, it's possible. So, for example, we have like church fathers quoting Papias that make a claim towards original authorship. We don't have the original document from Papias, but we have somebody quoting that document. So this would be like something that's lost in history, but we actually have a piece of evidence that say, hey, it's something that was lost that would back up Christian viewpoints.
Yeah. The thing is that I can't see how you read the Bible, which I have. I studied religion at university. I can't see how you read the Bible, even in the Gospels, and you go, yes, there are historical accounts in.
Yeah, because they get historical things correct.
Right? Yeah, but
so they get really big things
make
correct.
Wild claims about other things.
So can you give me an example of a wild claim that's just historically false that they made?
Because I cannot give you the verses. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I can give you accounts of things that they made that were correct.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Do you have the verse or do you not?
No, but I know the book. I'm just saying that these Gospels, which are historical accounts, and they are 4 accounts of similar things. They contradict each other. So
you're supposed to give me something. You're supposed to give me something that contradicts history completely. So what is an example of that?
You just said it was okay if I couldn't find the main verse.
Okay, so you don't, but you said you're gonna reference it in Matthew. What's the reference?
Oh, it's there's simple stuff. So the main one that comes to mind is the when they go into the desert, take a staff with you.
Right. This doesn't contradict history.
Yeah, but they contradict each other, and just because they all say the same thing.
Why is that an issue? This is what you would expect to see. This is what you would expect to see. This is what you'd expect to see people recording true information, especially when we know that Matthew copied a lot from Mark, right? Why would we see like such small discrepancies unless they were pulling from their own memory?
But you just said they copied, so how could they be wrong about a copy?
That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to say. They knew the other documents well enough that if all they were trying to do is lie, they would have just copied it verbatim. But because they are trying to account for things that are in their own memory, you're going to see these small discrepancies.
Yeah.
This is what you would expect to see.
But do you not also think that historically, like, because not as much was written down, and by that I mean purely because most people weren't literate, that we have to understand historically when we look at stuff that if it's been written down and it's been saved, someone probably had a purpose to do it. They have a motive behind it. As with all things,
you can't make an argument for someone's motive. That's just armchair psychology.
What do you mean?
We're not armchair psychologists.
Pardon?
That's armchair psychology.
So you don't, when you read a historical document, you don't think, oh, maybe what point are they trying to prove?
You can look at the point. You can look at the point that they're trying to prove, but you can't assume their point beforehand and say that'd be a reason to do it. So, for example, in Canadian law, I don't know about American law, but in Canadian law, motive doesn't mean anything.
Because I don't understand how that's relevant. I'm sorry.
Well, because you're trying to give motive. You're trying to say that they may have specific intent, right? This is armchair psychology. That's like, for example, we can read the Gospel of Matthew and can see that he's performing midrash because the document is similar to midrash, right? So we could say he had the motive to do midrash because he provided us a midrash. But we can't say that Matthew had the motive to lie to everybody and convince them of Jesus unless we have actual evidence evidence. I'm not saying that's what you said, but I'm saying we can't make that claim unless we have actual evidence towards that. If we're just simply doing armchair psychology. This is the reason why, like in Canadian law, motive doesn't mean anything. All they care about is what the data shows.
Okay. So honestly, mate, I'll give you it. You got me there. But can I just talk about the actual belief of it? So we can do the historical document analysis. You go, well, I believe this, I believe this, I believe all of this, and it has facts in it. Why does that mean that something which is beyond the natural order happened? Why don't people just lie? People lie all the time. People tell stories.
Okay, but if I can take that same kind of thought processing and I can apply it to anything at all. I can disregard everything that you just said because people lie all the time.
But you're talking about something which requires a suspension of the natural order.
Okay, let's imagine that you witnessed a miracle happen firsthand. Would it be natural or not?
No, that's why it's called supernatural.
What is supernatural? Can you give me the distinction between supernatural and natural?
Supernatural, in the sense, I would see it as means beyond the natural. So it would be like when we do science, we can learn certain things about ants or whatever. But we can't prove the supernatural. We can prove.
Right. So you still haven't given me a distinction. You just said they are distinct. What's the distinction?
Because you can't prove the supernatural by definition. It's supernatural.
Again, that's not a distinction. What is the distinction between the natural and the supernatural?
So there's a natural order stuff that we can understand. Wait, are you saying that resurrection is a thing that actually happens, and if we paid more attention, we'd see it happen in the world? Because
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, what is the distinction between natural and supernatural? That's all I'm saying. Because you're saying you're saying we cannot believe supernatural things. Well, what defines a supernatural thing? What defines a natural thing? So, for example, if I was to talk to somebody 7,000 years ago, and I said people will be able to fly, they'd say that's not possible. That's supernatural. But nowadays, people fly no problem, and this is a natural event. So, what is the distinction between natural and supernatural?
The example you gave there is just a quirk of the English language.
Right. So,
people
what is the
able
distinction?
To fly doesn't mean
I agree. But what is the distinction between the two?
Between flying in a plane and
the distinction between supernatural and natural.
One can be observed and proved, and another one requires, I'm going to say, a suspension of disbelief, but I don't mean that in a way if it's not true. It requires you to, you couldn't just prove it. It's not a thing that happens every day. We started the conversation with this. It doesn't happen every day.
Okay, so dark matter is supernatural?
I'm going to need you to explain that point, sorry.
We don't really have definitive proof of dark matter. We haven't really observed it. We can't repeat it, but it's the best explanation and the best hypotheses that we have in the universe for the space in between space. And it's called dark matter, right? It's a scientific hypothesis. So you're going to claim that it's supernatural? Yeah.
They haven't, no. If you go in on that, the reason we can claim that there's dark matter is because the equations don't add up. Hence why we found, I believe it's Neptune, the one before Pluto. We found that planet.
Okay, but you made the claim. You made the claim it's observable, right? It's not observable.
Observable is we can observe that something is missing, as in Einstein did it with special relativity and general relativity.
So you're still not giving me a distinction between supernatural and natural then, because then if I witness Jesus Christ, hold on. Because if I witness Jesus Christ resurrect, it's now observed, so now it's natural.
Okay, I think repeatable is probably a better way of putting it. You know, like what you call the scientific method.
So everything in history is supernatural?
I don't understand how that follows.
I can't repeat being Napoleon Bonaparte having breakfast.
Yeah, but I can have bacon every day.
But you cannot repeat Napoleon Bonaparte having breakfast.
Okay, you can repeat the actions. So
I can repeat having breakfast. I can prove that people have breakfast, right?
Yeah. So
Napoleon Bonaparte having breakfast cannot be repeated. So therefore, it's a supernatural event.
No, that's not how it works.
Then what's the distinction? You got to tell me the difference here.
Okay. You can repeat it. Okay, let's go for a simple one then. Water boils.
The claim here. Hold on, no, you're changing the analogy.
No,
you're changing the analogy. I'm sticking to the analogy, right? The analogy is Napoleon Bonaparte had breakfast. Not that people can have breakfast or people have breakfast. The claim here is Napoleon Bonaparte had breakfast, right?
Okay.
You cannot repeat that. So it's a supernatural claim.
Specifically, at our point in time, we cannot repeat that. But what I'm saying is,
so it's a supernatural claim.
On Earth, water boils at 100 degrees. It did yesterday.
Right. So you're dodging my question. You're dodging my question.
No, you've done that.
You're giving me an example. You're giving me an example. Listen, Linda, you're giving me an example of what is repeatable. That's fine. I believe there's repeatable evidence out there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you're making the claim for it to not be supernatural, it must be repeatable. So by your definition, Napoleon Bonaparte having breakfast is a supernatural event.
No.
Yes, then why isn't it? Give me the symmetry breaker. Eric Barlow came in $5, says, no, we found Neptune by its perturbation of Uranus. String theory can't be proven, yet no one calls it a fallacy. And then plus Than Christopoulos says, can you repeat abiogenesis? And he also says, can you repeat quantum fluctuations?
Okay, so just for my understanding, so you say Jesus coming back from the dead is rational.
Mm-hmm. But that's completely aside the point, because what we were talking about is the supernatural and natural distinction.
Yeah, I'm saying one is observable and the other one isn't. One
Okay,
requires
if I
a
observe
suspension
Jesus
of natural
resurrecting
order.
from the if I
No.
observe Jesus resurrecting from the dead, it is now a natural event, according to your definition.
Yeah, it would be an event, but
It's a natural event
I would
because
say
it's
that I'm going to
observed.
need a little bit more evidence or proof that this can happen.
You're
to say,
you're
oh,
trying to dodge the
percent.
difference between natural and supernatural. You're trying to escape it, right? I think it's
Okay,
just
so do
better
you
to
think
admit
there
that
is
you're
no
wrong in
difference?
this.
I think that I'm genuinely just kind of not understanding. So do you think there's a difference?
Your
between
definition is being observable. If I observe a supernatural event, it by definition would make it a natural event.
No, observable and repeatable and
Observable and
So if you want
repeatable.
to use the
Okay.
dark matter example, which you originally had, we can say that something exists which we call
Okay.
dark matter.
Is
because our equations don't add up.
abiogenesis a supernatural event?
I don't know what abiogenesis is. I'm sorry.
So abiogenesis would be the creation of the first single cell organism.
A supernatural event.
Is that a supernatural event?
No, because I think it could happen. And probably
Well, we haven't
has
observed
happened
it
on other
or
planets.
repeated it. So by your definition, it's supernatural.
But it's happened on this planet.
But we haven't observed
know
it
that
or
that-
repeated it, so it's supernatural.
Okay, we repeat splitting cells at all times.
That's
Are you,
we still
are you
haven't
like a
we still haven't
Seventh-day atheist?
we still haven't remade a single cell organism from non-life. So abiogenesis is not observable and not repeatable, yet you still don't say it's supernatural. So can you give me the distinction between natural and supernatural?
Actually, no. To be fair, I would grant that at this point in time is supernatural.
So abiogenesis is supernatural.
As to our understanding of it.
Okay, so this is the claim
I'm
you're
not
making.
like a
Abiogenesis
hardcore
is a
atheist,
supernatural
you know?
event.
Yeah, I'll give you that to be a supernatural event.
Okay.
But
Quantum
I think
fluctuation
that-
is also a supernatural event. And so is dark matter.
Can we use some examples which aren't science related, because I don't understand these terms, so I don't know.
Eric Barlow came in $5, says denying something because you don't believe it, it's not rational, it's an emotional appeal. I think I'm going to move on, my friend, because we've been stuck on a specific topic, and I don't think you're being in good faith here.
Wait, just one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just explain for me again why, because there are true things in the Bible, that means there's something which seems historically not to have, or seems like it shouldn't have happened.
No, if you want to, you can just go back and listen to the first explanation I gave you, but I appreciate it. God bless.
Changed the topic like 5 times.
I didn't change the topic. You brought up the distinction, and so we addressed the distinction. You brought up the distinction on a supernatural event you don't have to believe. Gable, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? And they always do that weird cope laugh. See, I told you.
Oh,
every
hello.
time.
Is this me?
Yes. Hello, how are you? How old are
Hello.
you, real quick?
I'm 25. Rather than trying to win a taco, unless you're feeling generous,
I'm always
I have
generous.
a list of gripes with other people's arguments.
So are you Christian?
Yes, I'm Christian.
Okay.
I
rather keep it. I rather keep it open for like people got questions or specific disagreements with me, if that's okay.
I would like to share some insight on a couple of things.
No, thank you.
Okay.
But I appreciate your time. Mm-hmm.
Nigger.
Richard or Richard. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How old are you?
I'm 18. I do have some questions.
All right. It's irrational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Want to talk? Go ahead.
So, I'm kind of questioning in the faith, but I wanted to ask.
Don't stop it.
What is the difference between supernatural and natural?
There isn't.
Because I don't really know.
There's no distinction. There's no difference.
There's
the
no
only
difference.
we say supernatural just to imply that God did it or some sort of transcendent being did it. but there is no distinction. Because if we see like what's the definition of natural?
I assume it would happen within like our worlds.
The definition of natural, existing or in caused by nature, but not made or caused by humankind. So let's define nature. Define nature, the phenomena, the physical world collectively, including plants, animals, landscape, and other features, products of the earth, as opposed to humans or human creation. The basic or inherent features of something, especially when seen as characterization of it. So, for example, we could say that God has a nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is his ontology. So that'd be God's natural state.
Okay.
We wouldn't say it's God's supernatural state.
No.
Right. So I don't think there's a distinction.
Okay. So this is gonna, it might sound like a stupid question. If there's no distinction, why do we label them differently?
Just so we can understand that, hey, this is, a tree growing out of the ground versus God doing something, or a ghost doing something, or some sort of transcendent being doing something.
Okay. Just got another question. The writings of Tacitus, I think that was his name, where he talks about like a supernatural event, which is, I think, relating to the resurrection. Okay. I don't know too much about it. Is that reliable as a document?
Tacitus never mentions a resurrection. Tacitus talks about how Christians worshipped Jesus as if he was God. And then Tacitus also talks to Pliny the Younger about what to do with Christians who are worshiping Jesus. So those are things that Tacitus mentions. I also think Tacitus talks about the blotting out of the sky, but he's referencing an earlier document. He didn't see it himself.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask about. I just didn't know the difference between those two and that follow-up question. That's all.
Why you question your faith?
A lot of temptation from outside, from the worlds. It's hard.
What's her name?
My name is Richard.
No, what's her name?
Oh, her name? No, I have no interest in anybody. It's things like money. It's things like wanting to have some kind of fame, attention from others.
What's wrong with that?
It's not that there's something wrong with it, but I notice it's taking up my time more than God, and I should be putting more faith toward God. But
it should take up more of your time. Not like, here's the thing: is like we give like the first hour of our day to God. We give 10% to God, right? This is what what's his name did. Come on, brain, work. Anyways, one of the guys in the Old Testament, can't remember. I think it was Lot. Lot did, yeah. So Lot built he got a message from God. Lot built a small temple to him in a cave, and then he left 10% of what he had, right? A tithing of 10%. So we give our first hour of the day. We give 10% of our income. We give things to God. We give him the first and the best, right? That's the key. This is the difference between Cain and Abel, the first and the best. But outside of that, you have a life to live. You have somebody that you got to be. Like if you want to make money, go make money. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you do with the money is important, right? If you want fame, go get fame, but give it glory and give grace to the Lord for that. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like they're not in conflict with each other. So I think if this is causing an issue with the faith, I don't think it should, man. I think you should find a way for it to make it work together, right? If you have these drives in you, right? God is giving you a gift to seek out a certain thing. Do that thing for the glory of God.
Okay.
Like who's a good Chris Pratt? Chris Pratt, right? Chris Pratt's rich and famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sits on stage and he says, "I give all glory to God for everything that I have." Right? God made Solomon. Yeah, Chris Pratt did that. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's awesome.
Solomon, he made Solomon rich, right? Because of his love for God and wanting wisdom. So I don't think you need to be in conflict with each other. I think you just need to find a way to make it harmonize and not idolize it. You can't put money over God. You can't put affirmation before God, right? It can't become before, but you can definitely harmonize the two.
I didn't think about it like that.
I hope that helps, bro.
Yeah, that does really help. Thank you.
No problem, man. If you got any more questions, come back. But if not, God bless.
I will. I've been loving your stream so far.
Thanks.
Peace. Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Pray for him. Pray for him, guys. My Lord and Savior, Katy Perry. Sorry. Hello. How are you?
Good. I don't ask this with any ego or hubris, but just to make this a brief talk. Do you know? Are you aware of my mission on TikTok?
I don't know who you are.
Okay.
Please don't take that personally.
That's okay. Surprising. Some people don't know who I am. Imagine that. I sent you a couple messages. Somebody DM'd me yesterday urgently and said Big John was talking about the shroud. I am the shroud science expert. I give a talk a week. I sent you some invites, and I'm always hosted by hosts. And so I just wanted to make a very brief personal appeal. And you can pray on this. You can talk to other people. Thank you, Casey. And see if perhaps, I think your platform would really enjoy. You're a science-minded guy. I can tell by the way you talk, evidence, not proof. Okay. And I think your platform would really benefit and enjoy for you and me, for you to be one of my hosts in the future. But that's your call, and I just wanted to make that personal appeal to you so that you could meet me, use your discernment, maybe check with a few people, see if that's something that would fit your platform. Every host I've ever had, and I've had so many, has enjoyed it tremendously.
Where did you message me? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was looking at my messages. I'd sent several to you asking if you'd like to host to me, but I know you're a big platform and you get a lot of messages, so I don't rely on that. But I've studied this for 15 years as a scientist. I know it more.
Sorry, did you email me or did you message me on? Okay, I never check my DMs. So can you send me?
I get it.
Yeah, send me an email.
How do I get? I don't want you to put your email here on a public platform.
It's a public email, so it's bigjohnsteele@gmail.com.
All one word.
All one word.
Okay, and and I give it's about a 3-hour talk: botany, pathology, life science, physics, history, hematology. I'm a science guy, and I deal with data for the last 15 years, not Google, not Wikipedia. Many people have heard my talks. If there's anybody listening here, John, I'll make this easy. Anybody here that's heard my talk or know what I do, put a 1 down below. If you'd like John to host me, we'll give you an insight. Maybe I'll be wrong. Nobody will put a 1. That would be humbling.
I'm on the computer, so I can't add you or follow you as a friend. So if you could send me,
John, look at your comments.
Send me a friend request, and I'll try to remember to accept it. And I apologize for missing your DMs.
And, I can send you, as we move forward, if you want to see a little what I do before I can send you, one of my hosts posted it on YouTube so that you can go to that and see some of my talk with that host and just make your own decision whether that would be good for your platform. But I really think something pulled me here. Yesterday, somebody sent me a DM, said, Big John's talking about the Shroud, Curtis. You got to go in there. And I went, but you were off apparently. So I couldn't get in there. But you're not going to meet anybody that knows more about it than I do, John.
What was your name again?
Curtis. Oakdale is a little city in Central California, and my name is Curtis. So I just string them together.
What's your YouTube?
I don't have. It's not on my channel. It's just posted there under Shroud of Turin, voice of reason, 1 word. Those 2 terms in YouTube will pull up the video. Shroud of Turin, 3 words, voice of reason, 1 word. First video up should say, is this the face of Jesus? And that'll be me and Luke.
Vor. I know Vor.
Yeah, Luke's a good friend of mine. So he hosted me and edited it and put it there. So if it's something you'd like to do, we just reach out to me with DM and I set you on my list. I might move you up. Don't tell my other creators because you're a big platform. And then we dialogue and find a day and time that works for you. And we launch. It's not rocket science. But I really think.
Yeah, I'm definitely open to that. So like I said, best bet, send me an email. I got the memory of a goldfish. So if you could send me that email, that'd be helpful.
You need both.
but yeah, man, we'll talk about it in the future because I am interested if the Shroud's actually got any evidence to it.
I will pop you an email and we can see if that's something you want to do.
All right, Curtis. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming up.
God bless.
God bless. Also, does he understand how vulgar I can be? Maybe I'm not somebody who should co-host. Most people don't know how rude I can be and mean I can be. Luke, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, John. Yeah, I'm 36 and I'm coming from France.
All right, man. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when to taco.
Okay, well, I'll try to share with you some rational hints that make me doubt there was indeed a resurrection. It's for me a chain of hints and no definitive evidence, but I think it's worth mentioning it. First one would be for me the Barabas name. So Barabas being the bad guy the crowd chose over Jesus. And do you know actually what Barabas means?
Jesus.
Or it's supposed to mean?
Jesus.
Yeah, right. So son of the Father, that's believed to be the meaning.
That's not the meaning.
And,
Jesus means Yahweh is salvation.
well, if you look online, and that's about the only place I can look up for information. You can also find the meaning of
I
son of the Father.
just looked at it. The etymology of origins of Jesus is Greek from Isos, which is translated from the Hebrew from the Yeshua or Joshua or even Yahshua, and it means God is salvation or the Lord is salvation. Better translates to Yahweh is salvation.
Yeah, for Jesus, I agree with you. But if we talk about Barabbas, some people, some scholars think it means son of the Father.
Don't care.
Which is sort of a hint for me that, okay, is it a coincidence that people have to choose between the Son of God and the Son of the Father, or that the Son of the Father is actually very similar to the
No,
Son
but
of
the
God?
problem is you're begging the question in the statement, right? You're positing that's what the name means, and then you're also pushing in some underlying meaning that doesn't necessarily have to be there. So, for example, Jesus is like a common name. It could just very well be that Barabbas had the name Jesus because his parents liked the name Jesus, and this was a real historical event. But if you want to posit that these names have meaning and the names are implemented there, then you're already positing that the author is not recording a real historical event, that they're making some sort of parable in the story of Barabbas.
If we make the assumption that actually there was not a resurrection, then the story might just well be
Right.
a
That's like I
very
said, it's
well
begging the
written story.
question.
All right, so let's move on to the next hint.
Well, that's not a hint because you have to beg the question for it to be a hint.
All right, so let's what's the word? Let's put aside this one as it's not a hint anymore, and jump onto the other one. The other one is actually pretty troubling for me. So when Jesus is on the cross, he's begging his father, sort of, why did he abandon him? And this is believed to be a reference to Psalm 22, verse 1. And you have in Psalm 22, verse 16, some reference to...
Just one second.
Sure.
Hello, baby. Fair warning, I'm live.
Do you like beef back ribs?
Yes.
Okay. If they have like a set of them for $22, is that okay for us for dinner?
Sure.
For dinner?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I love you. Bye. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. So in Psalm 22, verse 16, you have a reference to what could be a prophecy of the actual crucifixion and pain Jesus went through many, many years later after the Psalm 22 has been written. So this is very troubling, and it's...
What's troubling?
It's troubling because it's one of the most incredible...
What's troubling? What did you say? What was the issue with Psalm?
That might be... Yeah. So the issue with that is it's Jesus is clearly referring to the scriptures, right? Throughout the Gospels. But he's also referring to the Noah flood. Noah flood.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're kind of going all over the place. What was the issue with Psalm 22?
Yes. So exactly. So I was trying to figure out whether Jesus was actually referring to scriptures, actually knowing himself the scriptures very well or not. clearly with Psalm 22, verse 1, he shows the world that he knows perfectly the scriptures. But if we go on and move on and go to his reference to the Noah flood, which interests me particularly.
Why are we going to the Noah flood?
Yes, because that's the one which troubles me in a
Then
way
why did
to make me
I
feel
think I'm
like
gonna move on, man, because you're all over the place and not making like a coherent argument here. So again, what is the
all
issue
right,
with Psalm 22? Why'd you
I
bring it
will
up?
I will go back to you maybe some weeks later if you want. But very quickly, flood Noah. All right, it's also believed to be part of the Mesopotamian mythology with
Okay, but this is
Gilgamesh.
completely irrelevant to anything that we were talking about.
It's
So
not
I'm gonna jump on, my
irrelevant
friend.
because if you believe, many people have been trying to write a coherent story, so it will be very likely very difficult
Right. So
to
the Epic of
find
Gilgamesh is
some
completely irrelevant to
mistake
whether or
in
not
the
Jesus.
story
All
to
right. God bless.
discredit the story.
This is all over the place, and I had no idea what his argument was. Is this person going to connect? No, they're not going to connect. Guys, if you want to join the conversation, you can click the link pinned in the chat, or you can join with the multi-guest button, or if you're watching on Shorts, you can click the link pinned in the description. I have now opened up the YouTube comments to everybody instead of subscribers only, but if it's going to turn into comment warriors, we'll just turn it off again. So if you have a contention, please hop up. Or keyboard warriors. Dalton, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hi there. I'm 37. How you doing, John?
I'm good, bro. So it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
All righty. So let's say that I know nothing. I'm not even agnostic. I don't know what religion I am, and I come up to you and I say, "Hey, John, why is Jesus the Son of God as opposed to the things written in the Bhagavad Gita or any the Talmud, any other religious text? Why is it Jesus as opposed to?"
Why are you bringing that up? Because that's not the topic at hand. The topic is it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected, not about his claims about divinity.
So in that, well, you need to have you can't resurrect if you're not divine. Those two have to be related.
God could have resurrected him, right?
So can you make that distinction a bit? So God resurrected him, but that's not to say the same thing as Jesus is of divine origin?
I do believe that Jesus is of divine origin. I believe the resurrection is an evidence of that. But what you're doing is you're shifting to another goalpost instead of addressing the topic at hand. The topic at hand is it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco, and I'd like to stick to that subject.
Okay. So if I say that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Why
absolutely. Can you give me the definition of evidence?
Oh, not off the top of my head, I cannot.
Sure, I can. So the definition of evidence is anything that raises the probability of something being true. So for example, the reason that we believe anything happens in history is because of the claims made around it. We would consider this historical evidence. I'd say we do have historical evidence of Jesus Christ's resurrection.
Okay, so evidence being over 50% in the way that you
50%. How are you quantifying that?
Well, in your definition of evidence.
So anything that raises the probability. No. Anything that raises the probability. Definition of evidence doesn't mean it's probable that it happened.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
It just raises it. The quantity is irrelevant. It's raises it. Right? That's all it is. That makes evidence. It could be weak evidence, it could be strong evidence, but it raises the probability of it being true. Now, raising the probability, for some reason, everybody always thinks that means it's true and it happened. No,
yeah, certainly not.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay, so if is it on, let me ask you this. Is it on the person who believes in Christ to prove that he was resurrected, or to increase the present evidence that he was resurrected, or is it on the non-believer to disprove that?
It's on the person making the claim. So if I walk up to
Okay.
you on the street and I say, hey, Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead, the evidence is on me. If you walk to me on the street and say, hey, Jesus didn't resurrect from the dead, the evidence is on you.
Yeah, okay. So if I come up to you and say, there is no evidence, why am I wrong? Like you talk about what, like the Shroud of Turin, or is there any what is your
Right.
what would your pitch essentially be?
The reason you're wrong is because it goes against the definition of evidence, right? Which is anything that raises the probability of something being true. If you want to hold to the standard that historical evidences, the claims in history, are not evidence, then you have to say that almost everything that happened in history, there's no evidence for it. Like you can hold that standard, but I'm saying that's the worldview you're going to have to adopt.
Well, if something, let's say if going back to you're saying raises the likelihood of the evidence is something that raises the likelihood of something being true.
Yeah, so just 1 second. David Powell came in with $10. As a former agnostic, I enjoy your streams. Just want to say God bless and keep up the work. Thank you so much for the $10, David. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
All right. In the way that you're asking, is there you're not also in that question saying if God is if God resurrected Jesus, does that not also imply because of the singularity of God, like there's no, if there is God, then that necessarily means other religions can't be true.
I'm not
and
making,
I know that's
so,
not your question, but it does imply, because of Christianity itself saying there is no other God,
right.
So if you have this standard for evidence being something that increases the likelihood of it being true, you could apply that to any other conflicting religion, no?
Right. So again, this is a different topic.
Okay. I guess I'm not trying to derail. I'm just trying to figure out, it's a really specific question. And because of the faith, and the discussion that we're having, it carries all of the other, stuff we learned about in Christianity growing up and that kind of thing.
No. All this question entails is that Jesus resurrected, right? This doesn't entail a Trinitarian point of view. It doesn't even entail that he is God. It doesn't entail any other religion is true or false. All it states is that he resurrected. Now we can get into another conversation after that. Let's say you concede that, yes, it states that he resurrected. Then we can maybe shift to a conversation. Well, what does that entail? Well, I say it resurrected. Well, he also claimed that he was the one that resurrected himself. And I can make an argument for why that makes him God, or looking at those same historical documents that convinced you of his resurrection and say these documents say that he's God. But this then would be a different debate point. It'd be a different topic.
I see what you're saying. And in total good faith, it is hard to do exactly what you're doing without, talking about the other facets of the religion. So
no. So what I don't think, so I think you're being good faith. I think your heart is good faith here, but I don't think that's a good faith argument, because what it is, it's whataboutism. It's saying, well, if we hold to your worldview, what about this? What about this? And there's certain reductios that you can do to see if I'm being consistent, and that's fine. You can do that. You want to say, hey, if you think for example, a reductio that you could do, you could say, if you think there's enough evidence that Jesus resurrected, do you think there's enough evidence that Mary showed up at Fatima?
Right.
That would be like
exactly,
a good reductio.
Exactly. Because it's going towards the standard, not really the question that you're asking. But it does need to be kind of discussed in some. So if I'm coming up to you and I say, okay, what is the evidence that Jesus did resurrect? And I'm not a non-believer, I don't know anything about any religion, what would you say to me?
Well, I'm going to start on the basis. I'm going to say that we have the scripture. And the scripture records an accurate historic reporter's model, and that accurate historic reporter model says that he resurrected.
Can you describe this model?
The historic reporter, well, it's just a model, right? So when you're looking at history, you want to see which individual case in history, how their model of history is recorded. And I'd say the scriptures has a model that is accurate. So for example, it gets, Richard Bauckham notes that the Gospels get names and locations ridiculously correct, and they'd only be this correct if they were people that were in that time and place. So we could put the authors in this time and place, right? So for example, there is no consensus, nobody walking around doing consensus of names that we could access on Google at this time. So the only way they would know this is if they were there. We could say that in the Gospel of Matthew, he gets really good geography right, which means not only did he know the geography, he knew how they traveled in this time period. We could also look at undesigned coincidences noted by Lydia McGrew on things like on the things of like where they would be during like a Passover weekend, or exactly what color the grass would be at a certain time of year noted in the Gospel of John. So we see that they are trying to record good historic information, and we see that consistently through the Gospels. So this would be their reportage model. So if we say that yes, they're accurate on these all these natural claims, then why do we disregard these so-called supernatural claims?
Okay, so if and tell me if I'm doing injustice to this by making a quick summary of what you just said. We can ascertain through the text itself that they were there in the time based on geographical records, and they know, like you said, the grass is green at this time of year in this place. But to say that that also means that, I mean, isn't that kind of just extrapolating that everything,
No.
because
So
these things are
let me
true
give
in
you
the
a very
text, everything
specific,
else needs to
yeah.
be?
So let me give you a very specific explanation. There is the event that happens in multiple gospels. Just real quick, the subsidiary came in 999. Just a heads up, the second you log off, I'm spending the rest of the evening watching atheist debaters. So if you care about my soul, so maybe keep going. That's manipulation, bro. Appreciate the 999. So anyway, so a very specific example of this would be the feeding of the 5,000. This is noted in multiple gospels. In the multiple gospels, they have these small coincidences happen between each other. So for example, Jesus asks, who the heck was it? Let's say it's Peter. It's not Peter, but you'll get the idea. So he asks Peter specifically where he can get food. And then what's noted in one of the other gospels, or earlier in the gospel, is that Peter was from a specific location that was near there. I'm trying to remember. I could pull up the notes we need. Let's say it's Bethsaida.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then in a different gospel, it notes that they were actually in that location near Bethsaida. So we have this undesigned coincidence between these two gospels. What undesigned coincidence means is that you could tell the author didn't intentionally write this in. It's so small and so vague that most people missed it for 100 years. But we see these connections between the three that shows that they were most likely in this location near Bethsaida. And not only were in this location near Bethsaida, he only referenced this apostle one time. It's only to ask him where they can get food. And that would be the closest area. Then when we look at like Tacitus, Josephus, we can see that according to Roman maps, what the primary maps they were using, and Josephus' standard of Passover and his recordings on it, that they would have traveled that specific road to go to Jerusalem for Passover. So this shows that the multiple authors, were able to put them in a location, which was the feeding of the 5,000. Were able to tell us the time of year, the proper time of year, because of the green grass, and this would have been also the time of Passover, and was on the exact same road that would have been traveled for Passover. Plus, they mentioned this was the Passover time. Plus, the people were there. Plus, they're recording these small instances that were there. So they're getting all these small things that'd be very difficult to get correct unless they were actually there during the time, during Passover, and trying to record accurate information. And then what happens in this event? It's the feeding of 5,000. I'm actually working on a case right now where I think there's just as much evidence for the feeding of 5,000 as there is for a lot of other historical documents.
Okay. So, and just to kind of, let's take that in modern terms. Let's say you and I and our friends, we go to a Pantera concert or whatever. Like, okay, we got geolocated at this place. We all can prove we were there.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about it with your friends. I talk about it with my friends. They meet up and, oh yeah, John and Dalton said the same thing. They were probably definitely there. But then one of us goes and said, hey, I also fed everyone in that crowd 1,000 loaves of, I made 2 loaves of bread, feed all of them. How do you distinguish what a claim is from what is objectively verifiable from a historical text?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. So then we go into seeing, are the authors being genuine? Right. And the big reason that we would think that they're being genuine is the persecution that they are willing to accept on these claims that they're holding to be true. That doesn't mean that because you believe it, it's true, but this shows that they were being genuine in their beliefs. So we could say that they were there, that they had this event happen, that they're trying to record accurate information, and they're being honest, right? And this is not even thing that's even in contention in scholarship. What most scholars would say is that this is things that have happened later. So for example, the original authors recorded true events and were honest, but throughout time, through other hands, they added in certain things or extrapolated or made it exaggerated. We have no reason to believe that happened because of those undesigned coincidences I was talking about.
Can I stop you there?
Mm-hmm.
How many times has that original Greek text been translated?
Once.
How many? Well, we already have the NIV and we have the King James version.
Yeah, you're giving different translations, but it's still only been translated once, right? It went from the Greek to whatever translation you're reading now.
And those different translations, those different versions can say markedly, you know how King Henry's like, okay, take out tyrant and move it to change it to something else. I don't like this. And you have that perhaps over the span of 2,000 years.
Yeah, that your problem is your analogy doesn't work because we have the Greek and we can compare it, and we have multiple translations and we can compare the multiple translations.
And when you read the Greek, though, I mean, when they're talking about hell, they could easily be referencing
you're shifting the point. Doesn't matter what they're referencing in the hell, right? The point is that we can put them at this location during the feeding of the 5,000, during Passover, that they had all these small things completely correct. And this is not what you'd expect to see from extrapolated stories. So for example,
yeah, and I'm with you there.
Yeah. So for example, there's a guy who comes up later, and I can't remember. I'm really bad with names today for some reason, probably because I haven't eaten yet. But we have a guy that comes up later who literally tries to reinvent a Jesus story. So he's a Greek, he was a Greek that wanted to reinvent a Jesus story. So he wrote a whole book using real people, real places, and real locations that died because he could not get the small things right. It's widely regarded by scholars that nothing in his book, not a single thing in his book actually happened, even though he's making the attempt to use real places, real people, and real locations. Mario came in with $5, says, when I say, clicked the wrong one. When I say Hillshire, you say farm, Hillshire farm, go meet, pause, PS, GBYA. This guy is very shifty. Me or him? I'm not too sure. You're a member, so I don't think you're talking about me. I don't think he's shifty. I think this guy is nice.
It's hard to I'm trying to, when I say in good faith, and then I'm not trying to go off topic, but in order to make the argument, we have to kind of reference everything because there has to be something about your question that is unique to Christianity, right? Is that not true? Do you think? You could ask the same thing about the divinity of a did God resurrect Jesus? You could make other claims about other texts in the same kind of way, that these people were independently verifiable, that they were there at the time and were genuine in their text, in the way they wrote it, and B, they were willing to suffer for it.
That's not a B. That's not a B, right? So it's not NB. So it's because they were willing to suffer for it that we know they're being genuine.
Can you not make that argument for other religions, or am I going off topic?
Yeah, you absolutely can. You 100% can.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah.
So so I guess this is kind of unique because I've never had someone posit this question without trying to say it's the only one that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? A lot of theologians will be like, no, I'm asking this because I'm trying to prove my religion right, where you're just saying this event in this text did happen. Is that right?
So I'm saying this event, but the thing, okay, so you're saying, hey, can we apply this method that people are willing to suffer, so therefore they genuinely believe? Absolutely, but you have to look at what they genuinely believe. So for example, there are certain, I'm not going to get into certain claims because I don't want to get banana, but there's certain people who've unalived themselves for a specific God because they think they'll get a specific reward.
Yep.
They genuinely believe those. But how did they come to the term of genuine belief? We know how people can be genuinely believed of that, right? You can be indoctrinated in that. You can be primed for that. You can grow up in a culture that teaches you that, right? So they can have genuine belief, but the source of that belief is not trustworthy. But when we have somebody that says they personally witnessed an event happen, and they personally are willing to die on that claim, you have to ask why they genuinely believe that they personally witnessed it. How could they be confused? How could somebody alter that for them?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, John.
No problem, man. Thanks for the cordial conversation. God bless.
Yeah, I'll email you later. Thanks.
Sure. Email me. What's he going to email me? Don't send me nudes. Don't do it. I'm just joking. Bro, I'm going to heck for that one. Vinicius. How do I say your name? Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Holy shit, well, I am 30 years old.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when it's taco.
All right. Don't worry about my name. I am from Brazil, so Vinicius. So
Vinicius?
Yeah, Vinicius.
Vinicius, got it.
Yeah. The way I'm gonna approach this is probably like more minimalist way, because I am not a Christian, but I do believe in many philosophies from the Christianity and all. And I think as humans do change stuff a lot. So let's go with if it's rational to think that Jesus resurrected. Well, I think it's rational to do believe what people claim, like you were talking with many people here that I heard. I do really believe that it's a good claim to that they did, like the historical accuracy of it, but I don't think it's exactly logical, and to think that it is true by itself just from the nature of it resurrecting,
Well, you got to land the plane, bro. What's your argument?
Because I do believe that resurrection, it's not true by itself, but like I said in many conversations, it's okay to believe that what people claim is true. I just don't think it's possible for, even if it's God or if it's supernatural. I don't want to go into the supernatural or natural conversation again, but I don't think it's true that we can think it's rational to believe something that it's not common in common sense. But it's okay to believe the claims.
Okay. Do you believe that we landed on the moon?
If the man landed on the moon?
Yeah.
I don't believe it. Actually.
You don't believe a man landed on the moon?
Yeah, I don't believe it. I'm not want to be like the the conspirational sort of guy, but I don't believe it happened exactly how it did. I think it was kind of something they made us believe, not from text. They tried to show it to us. So it was
so everything that is basically an uncommon claim you don't believe.
Yeah, sort of. They try to make us believe with images, with better better ways to really trying to manipulating us into believing it. I don't want to say that it's not true, but I don't think it's rational to believe as it was not seen
do you
from
think
us.
Do you think Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas?
No, they did not. He did not discover Americans.
Do you think that he traveled to the Americas and thought he discovered it?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
okay, but that's an extraordinary thing, right? Like,
yeah, we.
Why do you believe that?
Yeah, people were already here. Natives. Since I'm from Brazil.
Yeah, but you're not answering the question, though. The question is, you believe Christopher Columbus believed that he discovered the Americas. That's an extraordinary claim because he's traveling to a place he shouldn't thought that he could be, and discovered this place or thought he discovered it. It's not something that people do every day, especially back then. So why do you believe that?
Oh no, so yeah, with the terminology, let's go with the discovery. Yes, he did discover. For him, it was not known for the world itself, Europe, and but in the fact that knowing the place firsthand, he did not discover the place as it was already inhabited with people, but he
Okay,
discovered
I'm gonna move
for
on
everyone else.
because I'm gonna move on, man, because like you're kind of talking a lot but not answering questions. Like
No,
you seem
okay.
like a nice guy, but like we got to have like a genuine conversation. So can you please
No,
answer the
okay,
question?
no, okay. Sorry. Can you ask me again? What exactly should I
Why
go
why do you
into?
believe that Christopher Columbus actually he didn't discover because people were already here, but discovered
Yeah.
it for his people, considering
Mhm.
that it's an uncommon event to do?
Why do I believe he discovered it? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
It's all
I'm
good,
really
bro.
sorry.
I got to jump on, but I appreciate your time. God bless.
All right, sorry.
You're a nice guy, like nothing personal, but we got to have a fruitful conversation. Lorenzo, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm 25, and for your information, I'm an historian, so I'm well versed in the verification of written sources.
Yeah, I always have wonderful conversations with people who appeal to their own authority right off the bat. Anyways, it's rational
No,
to
I
believe
just
that
want you to know
Jesus
that you don't
resurrected.
need
Prove
to
me wrong
explain
when they talk.
everything to me.
What's that?
I'm just saying you don't need to over-explain anything because, like, that's what I do.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. My
as
apologies then.
yeah,
Most people who come in right off the bat just kind of like appeal to their own authority usually is pretty crazy conversation. So
no, but
maybe I misread you. That's my apology.
I'm just saying, don't. It's to save your time.
Okay.
Anyway, so it is like the claim you just made with. We can start right from where you just left off with Christopher Columbus. That is absolutely something.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the Christopher Columbus conversation
No.
because
I will
he's the kind of guy he's the kind of guy who didn't believe in the moon landing, right? So I was just trying to
yes, of
tackle his
course.
worldview.
I'm just using it as a starting point. I would say, yeah, that is absolutely something that is unusual and something that was extraordinary for the time, but it's not something that is like biologically impossible. The resurrection of a man is.
Why?
If I read in a written source that
Hold
a
on.
man threw a dragon,
Let's
I will
pause there
not
because
just believe it,
let's
even
made
if
a
it is
claim.
corroborated.
Hold on. Let's make a claim before you made a claim. So before we move on that, how do you know it's impossible for someone to resurrect?
Well, scientifically, we have no evidence that that is possible.
That doesn't make something impossible.
Okay, make it happen.
Well, that's not how it works. It's so you're making the argument that it's impossible until it's possible, right? That's true. That's a false dichotomy, right? So basically you're stating that the probability of a resurrection happening is absolutely zero. Is that the claim?
Well, not necessarily.
Then what are you using by the word impossible?
I use the word impossible as in a very practical sense. I'm not. Your definition is not. What I would say is that if there was more corroboration through the sources, like if it was something that we would have no doubt about today that it happened. If the consensus was on that level, then I would believe it, even if it's something.
So are you just appealing to consensus then? Because consensus is wrong.
Well, it's not just consensus; it's the research that is behind it.
Okay, so what exactly would say? Are you stating that it's zero? That the chances of a resurrection happen are zero?
Well, I'm saying that by what the sources give, like the chances that we don't have enough sources to extrapolate something real.
Can you please
happening.
answer the question?
I'm saying that for what we have now, yes, it's zero. But
well, that's not how a prior probability works. You can't say for what we have now it's zero. That's not how it works. If it's zero, it's always zero.
No, we didn't. Like, as science evolves, considerations about its consequence of reality change. Yes.
Hold on. No, that's not how it works. If the probability is zero, right? So what are the odds that I can build a square round room?
Oh, those are impossible, but that's like illogical. Whereas the resurrection,
right. So the probability is zero,
also,
right?
Wait. God can do it. He is
no, he can't. God cannot make a square round room. So the possibility is zero.
God can do everything.
He cannot make a square round room. He cannot make a square round room. So the possibility is zero.
Where is that written? I'm sorry.
It doesn't have to be written. It's logically impossible.
God is almighty. Almighty entails also.
Almighty entails that you can do all things that are possible.
No, it entails that you can do everything. Do you know Latin?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Potens means able.
So if you can do everything, if something is possible, is it something?
Yes.
How is something that's impossible something?
That's the power of God. That's what
See,
Almighty means.
See, I told everybody that the moment that somebody appeals to their own authority, we have a wild conversation. I'm going to move on, my friend. I appreciate your time.
Let's go back to Christ and the resurrection.
No, thank you. I'm not interested in not good faith arguments today. Easy. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, I'm 22.
Bro.
So I was just going to ask, like, first of all, so what is your, like, first of all, I was going to ask, do you, like, ascertain 100% that it did occur?
100. You can't 100% anything, because then you're saying it's a necessary thing.
Okay, so you're just saying that there's a chance that it could occur.
No, that's not that. So that'd be like a low thing. What I'm saying is that it's rational for someone to believe that it did occur.
Okay, so what would be like your evidence to support the claim?
This would be the historic reportage model around Jesus Christ.
Okay, so would you acknowledge the fact? And I apologize for slightly off topic. Would you acknowledge the fact that it is possible for history to be rewritten?
Mm-hmm.
So would you then not believe it reasonable that a book as influential as it was for the garnering of power, mostly throughout European nations, might have been rewritten to become more favorable to the masses that it was using to exert its will over?
Yeah, it's possible, but making an argument for possibility doesn't give an argument for probability. So, for example, I could say it's possible that the reason that the moon circles the Earth is because small pixies like to push it around the Earth. That's a logical possibility, but I have no probable reason to believe that.
I would say that's not a logical possibility, because the logical answer is no.
It is logically possible. What's the contradiction?
That the logical answer is known. We know why.
Right. We know, right? Because we have the evidence towards that. But I could say it's so. So what I'm saying is, I have evidence that says Jesus Christ resurrected. But you're saying it's possible people would have changed it or moved it around, but you have no evidence towards that. So I'm saying, hey, we have evidence knowing how space-time works. That the Earth sits in space-time, and so therefore it pulls things towards it. Right? Very similar to where you put something in a cloth. That's where the evidence points. But I could say it's possible that pixies are actually doing it. So therefore, as long as that's possible, I can disregard the probable.
But just because the concept of something exists doesn't make it possible.
It's possible. It's logically possible.
How?
What's the contradiction?
No, how is that possible is what I'm asking you, because there is nothing to suggest that is the case. There is no possibility.
Right, so just because there's nothing, so possibility means it's possible that it could happen. Is it a possibility that pixies could exist?
It's possible, but
right.
But in the example of the moon orbiting the Earth, because we know why that occurs, the
problem is you're making my argument for me.
I don't understand.
So thank you so much. I thank you for doing that. Right, I'm giving you a possibility. That doesn't mean it's probable. So I do not think it's probable that pixies are pushing the moon around the Earth, right? Just like I don't think it's probable that a whole bunch of people changed the Bible to manipulate people.
But I would say it is impossible for pixies to be moving things around the Earth.
Why is it impossible? What's the contradiction?
Because we know why it's occurring. So there is no other reason that it would be occurring.
So you're saying we know for an absolute fact it's because of space-time, that there is 0% chance that we got that wrong?
Yeah. To our
right, so you're making an absolute claim. You're making a necessary claim.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so that by definition is irrational, because you can't say anything is for certain. There's only a few things that we can say for certain, like I know that I exist, right? These would be things like I could say for certain. But even science wouldn't say that they know this for certain, because science has to be, like, for example, they discovered bigger galaxies when they put the new telescope. They found bigger galaxies looking more towards the center of the universe, which contradicted everything that they already currently believed in science. So they had to go back to the drawing board and figure out, hey, why do we have bigger galaxies going more towards the center? They should be smaller.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I don't mean to come across as like aggressive, by the way. It's just my tone of voice. The thing that I would say about like a lot of these things, though, is that our understanding of these is like constantly evolving.
Yes, I agree. That's my point.
Of course.
Yeah.
But my point then would be our assertion that like the resurrection did occur. We've never tried to gain new understanding of that, and there never has been any new understanding.
There's constantly new understanding all the time, right? For example, for the vast majority of early Christian history, the Jewish literature was lost to us and has been recently discovered. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the earliest documents that we found, are only not even 100 years old in discovery. Like, there's a lot of new discovery that's coming that's changing the way that we look at history and look at the resurrection. And a lot of this data actually kind of supports what we're saying. So, for example, the Isaiah scroll, which I argue predicts the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in Isaiah, in Isaiah 53. We can see that this has a 96% accuracy to the Isaiah scroll that we have now. This would show like an authenticity and would actually go against your argument that people have changed it for their own desires.
But I also would say that belief does not correlate like fact.
That has nothing to do with anything I said, and shows you're being disingenuous now.
No, I'm not trying to be disingenuous. I'm just moving on to the next point. I grant you what you said. I'm moving on to the next point. It was what I was saying. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. I was just gonna say, I don't think belief is conducive to fact, though, because
I'm not even talking about belief. Again, this is just being disingenuous.
No, of course, no, I'm not. I don't understand how that's disingenuous. I'm saying
it's disingenuous because this has nothing to do with personal belief. It has nothing to do with the topic, and not even what I'm talking about. So why are you bringing it up?
Because I'll explain my point better. The account that we have with like the occurrence of Jesus' resurrection obviously is in the Bible, and the Bible was written by people, and people believed what they seen to occur. But just because they believed it, it didn't mean that it did happen. It could have seemed like that happened, perhaps even, but it doesn't mean it did. So if our account is based entirely on like one person's belief, I don't think it's rational to take that as like
that was never my argument, right? So what I'm saying is that what we can say is that the people who recorded this information are trying to record true information because they're willing to die on that claim. Right? So that shows they're genuine. That doesn't mean that it actually happened, which means that you cannot call them liars.
No, I'm saying just because they believe that happened doesn't mean it did. I'm not
I just
saying
said
they
that.
intentionally
Please
lied.
listen to what I'm saying.
I'm not saying they intentionally lied.
Right, can you please listen to what I'm saying? So this would be like the third time that you're kind of showing disingenuous. I literally just said, came out of my face, like the sound that fell out of my mouth was, just because they believed it doesn't mean it's true. I just said that.
Yeah, so then
right.
So then if the most solid account we have of the event is something that in all likelihood could not be true, just as much as it could be true.
Right, I'm going to move on now. I appreciate your time.
I don't think that's substantial enough to make a point.
He was about to crash out too. You know, it's like just before I kicked him, he was about to start making a weird noise. Connor, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? The host is so condescending, my God. Wait until you come up on a day where I'm actually trying to be rude. Connor, hello, how are you? All right, God bless. People are going to say I ran from Connor too. Brian, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, I'm 42.
All right, it's just difficult to hear you, Brian, but we'll do best. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when a taco.
Yeah, I was here on Wednesday with the horse debate, and I'm going to have to nitpick with you again.
I'm sorry, Brian. It's very difficult to make you out. I don't know if you're on a speaker or headphones or something.
Yeah, let me just change that. Just give me 1 second. Oh, I might drop and come back. I can't seem to change my audio input at the moment. I'll drop and come back. I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, thank you. God bless.
All right, take care.
All right, guys, just a reminder, if you want to join the conversation, you can click the link pinned in the chat. You can join by clicking the link pinned in my bio if you're watching on Shorts, or you can join with the multi-guest button. The amount of people that I have talking crap in the comments and watching is not proportionate to the amount of guests I have. I'm just very curious. If you disagree on this topic, hey, I'll treat you fairly if you treat me fairly. Come up, let's have a conversation on it. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I am 23. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm good, man. So it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when a taco.
I think there's better explanations that don't require the laws of reality being bent in the favor of one particular religion.
Okay, so how do you know that the laws of reality are bent?
It is said that he died and that he rose again. I think it's much better to assume he never did die, or he did, and what rose
Okay, but you say that defies the laws of reality, right? So if somebody resurrected from the dead, would that not change the laws of reality?
If it happened.
Right. So then are you not begging the question when you say that it defies the laws of reality?
No, I'm telling you that it didn't happen because it would defy the laws of reality.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Isn't that begging the question?
I don't think so.
How's it not? If you state that it cannot happen because it cannot happen, and my argument is that it did happen, how's that not begging the question?
Okay, well, I think it's much better to go down the rabbit hole of there's better explanations than assuming that this story is factually true the way
Sure,
it's
that's
told.
fine, but then you can see that it's possible, right?
Very, very unlikely. Very, very unlikely.
That's fine. You could say it's unlikely. That you could say it's low priors. Yeah, but you say it's possible.
It's as plausible as people, claiming to have risen from the dead today. Do you think it happens nowadays?
Sure.
You think resurrections happen nowadays? Could you point me towards one?
I just said I think it can happen. There's a question.
Do you have any you could point me towards?
Craig Keener marks about 80 of them in his book.
Craig Keener. I will actually have to.
Keener.
Yeah. Craig Keener. Hey, help me remember that for later. Craig Keener.
Sure.
Yes, sir. You couldn't conceive of any other explanations for the story that could explain it.
Not any that has the most explanatory power for all the data. Okay. So like you can conceive of ideas, but usually it neglects certain aspects of data that are implemented, or you have to change the data that's at hand. I think the best explanation, considering all the data, is that he actually did resurrect.
A miracle claim, yeah.
Define a miracle.
Like the laws of reality being bent in someone else's favor.
Okay, so if a miracle happened, would it not be in reality?
Well, yeah, but it would.
Okay, so then what's the distinction between a miracle and non-miracle event, right? So like, how are you defining
a non-miracle event is like, I don't know, the four fundamental forces, but a miracle event is like a claim that's outlandish, like Muhammad splitting the moon in two, or Jesus resurrecting from the dead.
Fine. So somebody traveling to the moon, is that a miracle event?
No.
Okay, but is that not outlandish?
No, it's using the reality as we understand it.
Hold on. If I told somebody 200 years ago that we traveled to the moon, would they not say that's an outlandish claim?
Based upon their understanding of reality and physics, they would probably say this is not possible.
Right. They'd say it's outlandish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then when it happened, it no longer became outlandish. So therefore it's not a miracle. So you're basically making an argument for presentism. You're saying in the past it was a miracle claim, but now it's not a miracle claim. So if we're talking about like a scientific method,
it's a little bit different though, yeah.
If we're talking about a scientific method, what's a consistent standard to determine whether or not something's a miracle?
Hold on. When someone is actually dead, they're dead. That cannot be reversed. Going to the moon, that's just going from point A to point B.
That's begging the question again. That's begging the question. Because again, the statement here is it's rational to believe that he resurrected from the dead. And you're saying people don't rise from the dead. That's begging the question. Because that's the thing we're debating at hand. You cannot use your conclusion in your primacy.
Is the claim also the evidence?
No.
It seems like it is for you. No offense. It's just you seem
not.
really eager to accept the story.
Right. So that's an ad hom.
I'm not trying to be underhanded. I'm just being genuine.
I'm not saying you're underhanded. I'm just pointing out your fallacious argumentation. It's an ad hom. You're saying that, hey, my argumentation's wrong because I'm willing to accept it. That's ad hominem.
You just seem to be really willing to not doubt this story that
right.
we
So
all
do you have an actual argument, or are you just reverting to fallacy after fallacy after fallacy?
Well, I have another question to ask you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time then. God bless. Have a great day. Just said that he didn't have an argument. Just said he had another question. So God bless. World Farewell. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Yo, hello. My name is Yannick. I'm 37.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, Winnetalko.
Yeah. I would say it's not only rational, it's logical.
Okay. Well, if you agree with me, man, I appreciate your time. God bless.
Yep.
Why did somebody post a picture of me? I'm not going to bring you up. I don't trust you. Connor, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I am 30. How are you doing today?
I'm good, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Well, I just have a quick question. Do you consider the veracity of the Old Testament to have any bearing on claims in the New Testament?
What was that word that you used? The first one? The what?
Veracity.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I suppose the truthfulness of the claims it makes.
The truthfulness of the claims of the Old Testament has any weight on the New Testament. It has no weight on the topic at hand. Because the whole New Testament could be false, and it could still be true that Jesus resurrected. Or the whole Old Testament could be false, sorry.
I understand that, and I understand if this is where the conversation ends, but I mean, taking the parameters of your question of is it rational in a vacuum, doesn't that ignore the kind of greater cosmological implications of what we're really talking about?
Somebody could absolutely look at history and say, yep, there's enough historical evidence to say that Jesus Christ resurrected, but there's not enough historical evidence to say that a world flood happened. So, for example, there's a scholar by the name of Matthew Lynch that makes the argument that the world flood never did happen, but he does make the argument that Jesus Christ resurrected.
I understand that. The Jesus resurrecting is obviously a linchpin for believers.
Yeah, that's a core foundation. But just because A doesn't mean B in this scenario. So like Jesus could resurrect and you cannot hold to any of the other dogmas of Christianity. But to hold to all the dogmas of Christianity, you need to believe Jesus resurrected. Do you understand?
Correct.
Yeah.
But without that, if you don't hold any of the former events true, right, then where do you source your belief and explanation?
Right, but you're trying to get me into a theological dogmatic discussion about the Christian faith. That's not the topic at hand. The topic at hand is more like, is there enough historical evidence to say that this person resurrected from the dead?
Okay. Have a nice day.
All right, man. Appreciate you. God bless. Let's do this person. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hi, I'm 30 and I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I'm not religious at all. This is new for me. So anything you quote from scripture or anything like that, I will have a minimum understanding of. But I think something I want to help you understand is what other people are trying to tell you. And that is, your argument is kind of void because the thing about Jesus is he was a divine being. So the laws of logic and things like that don't apply to him.
So Jesus doesn't have to be a divine being to resurrect, and the laws of logic would define.
But he was a divine being. That's the fact.
This is what I believe. Yes, but it's aside the point, and also a divine being.
No, it's not. Can you
please let me address?
No, I was speaking.
Right, then I appreciate your time. God bless. Have yourself a great day.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are you going to let me finish my statement or no?
No, because
okay, then God bless.
It needs to.
Sir Zorro, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you? Sir Zorro?
Hey, I'm 27. Yes.
All right, bro.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when a taco.
I'm not a Christian.
Okay.
I don't have any idea about the Christianity. So.
Sorry, just real quick. Gabriel came in $2, says, I appreciate the zero tolerance for bad faith today. Not in the mood for it today, man. Some days I am in the mood for it because it's funny. I'm just not in the mood for it today, but thank you. Sorry, bro, go ahead.
So what's your historical claim about Jesus Christ?
I'm saying there's enough historic evidence to say that Jesus Christ resurrected. So
if I say any person that, like any other person, resurrected from death, does that mean they are God?
Completely irrelevant to what I'm saying.
So if I say someone else, like
Mm-hmm.
any other person who claim that he resurrected from the dead, does that mean he's a god?
Again, completely irrelevant to what I'm saying. I'm not making a claim towards Jesus's divinity right now.
So you are just making a claim that Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead.
Yes.
That's it. So
Yes.
no divine claim in that.
No.
So you're just claiming that it could be medically possible.
For the third time, Jesus Christ resurrected from the dead. That's my claim.
Okay. Okay. I don't have anything about that, but I can point in the history that many other people claim that they resurrected from the dead.
Okay. Who?
There was a Jewish Messiah. I don't know the name of that person.
Mm-hmm.
There was a. I gotta look into it. Give me a second.
Hold up. Get it in this so they can see it in this one. Is that what we're having for dinner tomorrow?
Yeah.
I love you so much.
It takes up the whole.
Get your meat out of my face. This is a family network.
Screen.
Love you. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, somebody asked for the barbecue invite. I'll invite you to my barbecue once I get invited to the barbecue. If you know what I mean. You know, the deep melanin barbecue.
Hey John, sorry, I couldn't find the exact name, but there was a claim about some Jewish rabbi or a Messiah who claimed to resurrected, and
Okay. So I would have to look at the evidence to make a decision on whether or not this person resurrected or didn't, but I'm not going to say that they didn't. I'd have to know. I'm agnostic to this point because I don't have enough information.
okay, that sounds good. All right, that's it from me. I don't have any other point, but just let you know I follow you for a while. I love what you're doing.
Thanks, man.
I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Christian, by the way. I love the Christian theology. I've been into it for I don't know, maybe 2 years for now. So I've been watching a lot of your debates and other Christian debates. Not only just Christian debate, but Christian atheist, Christian Muslim. I like how you debate with Muslim, especially. I love the way you handle it, because I think you know a lot of the the Quran and the Hadith and the Tafsir. I love the scripture of the Muslim, and the way you go to it, I love it. So
Thank you, man. Well, I'm going to kick you before you make me blush. So I appreciate your time, though, and I appreciate the kind words.
No, it's all right, man. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
God bless. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hello. How are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm 18, and I had one question.
All right, go ahead.
So when you say rational, what do you mean?
It's just logically consistent, logically sound, that you cannot say that somebody is just picking it ad hoc.
So by that, do you mean like through inductive reasoning? Because I would say it's irrational through
inductive, deductive, or evidential.
So, okay, let's go with inductive reasoning, right? If you would say that it's rational through inductive reasoning, can you make an argument for that?
No, because I'm using an evidential case right now.
Okay, so the evidence, right? The historical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is, I guess, evidential towards the idea that he did?
Yeah, this would be like the epistles of Paul, the epistles of Peter, James, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and the historical reportage model towards that.
Mm-hmm. Right, but those epistles, they make a claim. That's
so I just real quick, Preach and Play Gaming came in with $1.99, says you're invited to the Melanin Barbecue. You're welcome. Thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Dang, I'm invited to the barbecue. All right, sorry, bro. Go ahead.
It's good. So when you say the epistles of the church fathers,
not the church fathers,
well, all of the apostles, right? When you say that these point towards Jesus resurrecting, I mean, it's what I would see it as more or less just an assertion.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is the historical reportage model, if we're looking at any historical reportage model, we need to understand how it works, how it operates. And so if we can make claims, for example, like Napoleon Bonaparte existed, Gaius Caesar existed, well, yeah, we do that through these claims in history and evidence. Same thing with Jesus Christ, right? We have all this data that collectively scholars agree that Jesus was a real person, crucified under Pontius Pilate. His followers genuinely believe he rose resurrected from the dead. His tomb was most likely empty. John the Baptist existed, was executed under Herod. Pontius Pilate existed. Herod existed. Mary Magdalene existed. So we get all these claims from that information. Well, from these sources also make the claim, or what you would expect to see if this claim was true. Says that Jesus Christ resurrected. Now we can get into these, and if it's trustworthy or if it lines up. But I'm going to say if A is true, then B is also true, or at least rational to believe.
Okay, but that kind of assumes, right, some inductive reasoning. But I don't think that pattern is actually accurate.
Why?
Because, for example, when we see somebody that is dead, and we see another person that is dead, and we see that they don't actually resurrect, we can assume the next person that we'll see is dead. So
this is called the principle of analogy in history. I think it's unscientific. It means no matter how much history or how much evidence that we have in history towards a certain claim, you'd have to disregard it because you haven't seen it personally.
Right, but it's defining as what's rational or irrational to believe. So I wouldn't say that it's a proven fact that it happened or it didn't happen.
I didn't say it's a proven fact. I say it's rational to believe it. Those are two different things.
Right, but like rationality isn't actually claiming something is true or not. It's just claiming that there's evidence for it and what
there is evidence for it.
Believe.
Yeah, define evidence.
Right. I would say
I'm not interested in what you say. I'm interested in the colloquial definition.
Okay, then what's the colloquial definition?
Anything that raises the probability of something being true.
Okay, and would you say assertions raise that probability?
Yes, absolutely.
So an assertion raises the probability of a claim?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Well, I knew what you said, but the claim raises the probability of an event happening 100%. So, for example, let's say that a police officer standing outside of the street, he has no reason to believe that I'm being assaulted in my house. But if I open up my window and I yell, "Hey, I'm being assaulted in my house," the probability of them believing I got assaulted in my house is just raised.
Okay, that's fair, but that only stems from what the police officer knows can actually be true. Or what they're actually rational to believe, right?
No.
So when you say
police have to investigate. So if I say for example that that Putin is in my house and holding me by gunpoint, right? Mm-hmm. He's not rational to believe that, or just off the bat, but it's still enough evidence for him to have to go and investigate. So it still raises the probability that Putin did it.
Okay, and when they do investigate, how do they know if it's rational you were telling the truth?
Through many investigative processes. For them specifically, it'd probably be seeing Putin in the room or finding his DNA or something like that.
Okay, but can we actually do that through like
no, we apply the historic reportage model. So if we say that we can have certain other claims in history that are accurate and historically sound, then we can say, hey, this raises the probability or most likely to be true. When it comes to the case for Jesus Christ, it's not that we just have similar evidence. We actually have an astronomical evidence. People may say extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We have more evidence for Jesus Christ's resurrection than the vast majority of things in history. Usegi came in with Arwin. I don't know how to say her name. Came in with $5, says, could it be argued that modern resurrection accounts, recitation accounts as a form of resurrection today when people often see the afterlife when dying and brought back? Maybe that could be argued. I can't claim one way or the other right now.
Okay, but you say that's because of the fact that Jesus is so well documented and that, for example, his resurrection is very documented by these people, that like the apostles, for example. There were also a lot of other
people. Just real quick. Lance came in 499. History points towards Jesus' resurrection. It seems obvious. God bless. God bless. All right, go ahead.
There was also a claim by Paul that said a lot of other people apparently saw him as well. So when you say that these few people saw him and wrote about him, what about all the other people?
That's completely irrelevant. I'm not using them as a piece of evidence.
But I feel like there's only 3 or 4 accounts actually.
There's 21 eyewitnesses, and so there's 21 eyewitnesses that come within probably about 10 accounts, something like that.
10 accounts?
Something like that. So that includes, if you include the extra biblical. So for example, we have like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that's 4. Then we have the epistles of Paul, that's 5. Then we have James and Peter, 6, 7. Then we have like Pliny, Tacitus, Josephus, that would be, they're not specifically saying Jesus resurrected, but their writings is what you would expect to see if Jesus resurrected. So we take all this data, we probably have, who notes it? I haven't gone through all of it, but Gary Habermas, the scholar, notes there's about 53 different documentations that corroborate Jesus's resurrection.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about the external accounts like Josephus or Tacitus recording the resurrection. Yeah, right. All I'm aware is it's just the apostles, right? But I would say that, like, you could say I'm wrong, but I would say it's just circular.
Yeah, circular is when you use your conclusion in the premise. If I said the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true, that's circular. What I'm saying is we have historical documentations that point towards this. And just like any other sort of historical documentation, we take it as proof. So we have documentation about Gaius Caesar existing and the things that he did. That's evidence that he existed in the things that he did, right? So we have more evidence for Jesus Christ and the things that he did. And one of the things that he did was resurrect from the dead.
Yeah, but I feel like saying that just because something isn't popular at the time, like writing accounts or manuscripts of people, and that suddenly there's a lot of manuscripts saying that he did happen from these certain individuals that have been saying supernatural claims for as long
What's a
as
supernatural claim?
What's a supernatural claim?
Mm-hmm.
I actually feel like it's not defined at all. So
right. So then what do you mean when they're making a supernatural claim? They're just making a claim.
I'd say something that breaks the inductive chain, that you would say like somebody is dead.
You can have an inductive chains in that would include so-called supernatural events, because it's just a chain of logic, right?
Right.
Yeah, you don't need evidence for an inductive chain.
Okay, I understand the point you're making. I'm just not super convinced. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not the argument. My argument isn't to convince you. My argument is it's rational to believe.
Well, I haven't really been actually. Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna take my leave. It was nice talk.
You too, man. God bless.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Darling.
Yes.
When would you like to eat dinner?
When are you hungry?
I'm not hungry right now, so it doesn't matter.
I haven't eaten at all today, so I can eat whenever. If you tell me when you're going to start cooking and how long it'll take you, then I'll know when to end the live.
Well, it's going to be calzones.
Ooh.
And so the dough has to
Get
sit
married, guys.
for an hour, so it'll be at least an hour.
Should start cooking now.
Okay.
George Jawa came in, said, would the apostles lie about Jesus knowing they would be unalived for what they were preaching? I don't think they would. I think it shows genuineness. You see how blessed I am? I'm very blessed. She comes in. We're going to have pork ribs tomorrow. We're going to have calzones tonight. Beef ribs.
That's what I said on the phone.
Oh my God. We're going to have beef ribs tomorrow. That is even better. Oh, calzones. I get a massage. I get a kiss. You found a knot. Get married. It's totally worth it. All right. Hello, Brian. How are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, I'm 42. Is my audio better this time?
Oh, yeah, much better, Brian. Much great to have you back.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, get married, guys.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Yeah, just quickly. How long are you married?
2 years next month.
2 years. Going on 9 myself.
Congratulations, man.
First of all, the Dark Eldar do have a reason why they torture people. It's to prevent their souls being devoured by Slanesh.
True, but they don't. It's not a justification, right? They're not justifying
but they have
it.
a reason.
They do. You're right. Also, the fact that you knew that is amazing.
Oh, I'm 42 now. I was into Warhammer back when I was in my teens, so I know all the stuff.
I've never played Warhammer. I probably never will. I'll never buy a figurine. But bro, do I love the world? It's so cool.
No, I played it. I played it back in the day. gave it up for a while. I got back into the lore of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost 50 years they're going building this universe. It's incredible.
It's somebody said in the chat as I smell heresy. That's
Don't
great.
get too deep into it, man. The lore is so deep. It's so deep. You'll never get through it all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%. Anyways, bro, what's up? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So, do you mind before we get into the meat of the matter? Do you mind if I do a little bit of meta?
I suppose.
Okay. No, I mentioned on Wednesday how I loved your chat. They were very nice to me. One of the big reasons why I'm following you is because I've been looking for a channel like yours for a long time. You're not the Phil Bro or the For the Bible tells me so type. You're very much, you have your own reasons why you believe, and it's very refreshing.
Thank you.
And the other reason, I think it's important to expose yourself to different positions. That's why I was looking for a channel like yours. And I've heard you mention other atheist debate channels. So I think you do that as well, that you expose yourself to other positions because it's important.
I probably listen to atheists more than I listen to Christians.
Yeah, it gives you lots of ammunition. But that's why I had an idea. I had an idea while I was waiting in the chat there, where I spend a lot of time in atheist chat rooms, and recently I've been asking them to send well wishes to my dog because he's old and we got some bad news about his heart recently from the vet.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. He's reached a grand old age for his size. But it occurred to me that if I'm doing this whole, people believe different things, and that's fine as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, that I should do the same thing here. So I'd like to extend the same thing I said in the atheist chat rooms and say, if you or any of your followers wanted to send well wishes.
Well, we do something different. It's called praying.
I was just about to say that, or even pray. I'm not one of those atheists who's like, "Oh, how dare you pray for me?" No, that's your thing. And I know under Christian theology, not all dogs go to heaven, unfortunately.
Actually, no, I disagree. I disagree. I do believe all
really?
animals. I think all animals go to heaven.
Oh, that's awesome! I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
So, as I was about to say, though, if you or any of your followers wanted to send well wishes or prayers for my old sick boy Mercury, that
Mercury,
the rest of his time on Earth isn't too painful and he's happy.
Can I pray for him now? Or is that awkward for you?
Can. I will be respectfully silent. I won't be taking part. I hope you understand.
That's okay. Mercury, right?
Yeah, but absolutely you can.
Okay. Lord, thank you for who you are and all the blessings that you've given. Lord, I come to you with a simple request. I just ask that you give Mercury good times here on this earth before he moves on to this next plane and gets to meet you in his kingdom, and that you welcome him open to your kingdom. But Lord, I think it would be more impressive if it be your will that you just give him health, give him more time on this earth, if it be your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
That was lovely. Thank you. Well, again, I'm 42. I'm long past my angry atheist phase. I've been to Buddhist weddings and Muslim funerals and Christian baptisms. It doesn't upset me, but Good. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
So, could I ask you? Now we're getting into the meat of it. I know you hate Phil Bros, but could I ask you for your definition of rational?
Yeah, so I just say that's something that's believed that isn't ad hoc or arbitrary.
Okay, yeah. Actually, no, that's why I like it. That's a very simple but very clear definition of it. But I might be asking some very personal questions in a minute, not right now.
Okay.
But if I do get to that point, please just tell me to stop, and I will.
Don't worry, I will.
Because I've heard you give your reasons for believing, and you talk about the philosophical arguments and the historical evidence for the death and resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
But then in your YouTube bio, you talk about the revelation you received.
Yes, I had what I call Christology, and so I think I know where you're going. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, yeah, that's what brought me into the belief. But I wouldn't have stayed if I didn't find a rational reason for it to be true. And you can ask my wife; she just left. But one of the things I wanted to do was disprove Christianity when I first became a Christian, so to speak, because I wanted to prove that what I went through was just a psychotic episode, maybe so to speak.
Oh, I hadn't heard that. As I said, I've been following you for a while, and I've been going through some of your back catalogue. I hadn't come across that you actually tried to disprove it after the revelations.
That was my goal. I opened the Bible. I'm like, I'm going to disprove what all Christians believe. They're all wrong, and lo and behold, I was wrong.
Yeah. Okay, so well, I said we were getting into the meat of it, but I suppose now we're really getting into the meat of it. I'm going to go with the question I always start with. Can you demonstrate full human biological regeneration 48 to 72 hours after clinical death?
No.
Again, why is it reasonable or rational to believe that it happened one time 2,000 years ago?
Same reason it's reasonable or rational.
Demonstrate it's even possible.
Yeah, so the same reason it'd be reasonable or rational to believe in abiogenesis, right? It's because this is where the evidence points. So even though we can't like test or repeat or redo abiogenesis, it's the best hypothesis with the most explanatory power towards the human state being here now.
I'm not asking for repeatability or
You kind of are. You asked, can I demonstrate? Right? That's repeatability.
Just to show that it's plausible. We can demonstrate chemical reactions. We can demonstrate amino acids forming. We can demonstrate peptide chains forming.
We can't demonstrate abiogenesis.
No, and that's why I don't claim it's an 100% fact.
But would you say it's rational to believe in abiogenesis?
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah. No, you got me there. I can't. No. Good job.
Thank you. We got him, boys. I got to put that as a sound cue on my board. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Hey, come on. I got you on a couple of points on Wednesday, and you had the grace. You had the grace to say fair play, fair point. I'll have the grace to do it tonight as well.
Fair enough.
You were still wrong about the Dark Elder, though.
Yeah. Not in the rhetoric, though. I was wrong in the premise, but not the rhetoric. Because the Dark Elder, full on do evil things because they enjoy it, not just because it sustains them too. Like they do it for their own entertainment.
Well, it's both.
It is, yeah, 100%.
So I had a few more points, but no, honestly, yeah. No, you completely shut me down with that one. There's as much reason to believe in abiogenesis as I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board on that one.
Awesome. Well, hopefully next time you come up, you're here to confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, and you're going to ask me to come baptize you.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
you never know.
We'll see.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, Brian. You're a very kind man. Let me know how your dog goes, and let us know if you need anything for your dog. Don't hesitate to reach out.
Will do. Take care of yourself.
God bless, man.
Have a good one.
I like Brian. Pray for Brian's dog, guys. Also, people kept saying this, but I didn't want to do it at the time. But
money.
There it is for you guys who've been asking. I don't think this person's going to connect. Let's move on to the next. Yeshui. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hello, I'm 33 years old. I'm
All right,
a believer of Christ.
Okay, do you have a question or a contention?
A real question, because the title of yours is to convince you to step off of the Christian belief.
Mhm.
So I have a real easy answer for that. If the Christ King is coming back and he changed the name of the faith, do you want to join Christ?
All right, man. Appreciate your time. God bless. Just some guy. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I'm 43.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
All right. Well, at least for me, so I've never been a believer.
Okay.
I considered myself a logical person, so I'd just like to kind of at least try to get through how I feel about it shortly, if you'll give me just a second.
Sure.
Basically, people can write anything in a story, right? So, in my opinion, when I look at the stories, and I see all kinds of different things written by Christians, right, that say these things happened, but anything could be written down. So the story itself, I know someone earlier was calling that a circular reasoning, and I don't know if I would go that far, but it is in a sense the claim, right? I don't miss it because of that, but I find it hard to simply from the story with no other evidence besides what's written by Christians to feel
Okay.
like.
So let's just test if you're consistent. Do you disregard everything in history?
Do I disregard everything in history? I do not. But
Okay. Well, that's
the same-
inconsistent then, right? Because you're stating that it's possible that they could have lied, so therefore I shouldn't believe it. Well, it's possible that literally everything that's written in history they could have lied, so therefore you shouldn't believe it.
No,
So possibility isn't probability.
I would say that anything that is just a story that we have for that, it's reasonable to not state that it is true without other supporting evidence for anything, for Caesar, for want more than just a story.
Right. So you could say it's reasonable to state it that I don't believe it. That's fine, but it's still also reasonable to say I do believe it.
Well, I don't though. I don't feel, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm not interested in for you. The statement here at hand, it's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected.
But
That's the question.
Would that not just be like different standards of evidence?
Right. So but I'm holding to a scholarly standard. You're holding to a personal standard. Like a scholarly standard is the fact that, if we have historical claims and we have enough of them, we have to regard this thing as most likely to be true and actually happening in history. This is why we believe that, I keep forgetting his name's Hannibal. Hannibal crossed the Alps on elephants. It's because we have historical documents for that. That's a hard thing to do. It's almost an extraordinary claim, but yet there's no historian that disagrees that Hannibal crossed the Alps on elephants. And we don't have any extra data outside the testimony.
I feel like that once again, I would say that maybe he didn't cross the Alps.
Sure. You can say maybe he didn't, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's rational to say he did.
I mean, you could challenge that. You just did. You said that it's hard to believe. You would want more evidence to.
Okay, so you think all of the majority of historians should change their viewpoint and say that he did not cross the Alps?
I think the majority of historians would say that we have a story that says that this happened. Whether or not it really did is not in evidence.
Okay, so you have to state then that the only thing in history that we actually can't claim anything happened in history. That's what you have to say.
Well, you would have to just be honest with the evidence. If we only have a story, you say that we only have.
But is that what you're stating? You're stating almost everything that happened in antiquity. We have to say cannot happen. All we have is stories. Well, they may have happened. They may not have. That's all we can say.
Not if we have some other reason to say more. So if you have some outside
Right,
of this,
but you're kind of escaping my question, right? So you're adding to it or changing it. So again, the vast majority of history does not have these extra biblical or extra textual documents or repeatable evidence. The vast majority, all they have is what is documented, right? What they wrote down. So like the most of the Jewish war we know because of Josephus, right? And what he wrote down. There isn't really much extra biblical except for the fact that we have like remnants of the temple. So that'd be like one part of it. So bare minimum, we could just say, yeah, the temple isn't there anymore. We don't know how it was destroyed. And there's a document that talks about how the temple was destroyed, but we don't actually know if that happened.
Yeah, you couldn't say that you know it to be true.
Yeah, I think that's irrational.
No, I think that's honest.
I think it's irrational. It means literally there's no point in historians recording anything.
That's not true. You can say you have a story and that it maybe happened, but you
then
can't.
why? But if recording history and nobody can actually take it as historical information, what is the purpose of recording history?
You can find evidence for things. You could go to the temple and find.
You're not answering the question.
Okay, repeat it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So if people recording history, right? If nobody can actually take it as like true factual information, what is the purpose of recording history? What is the purpose of news stations? What's the purpose of reporters? What's the purpose of anybody who records and documents things if we can't actually take it as true?
Well, I think you can take it as possibly true, but if you want to say that it is true, that you would look into it more.
You're not answering my question. Please answer the question. It's the fourth time I asked you. If you don't answer my question, I'm going to move on.
I'm sorry.
What's the purpose of it?
The purpose is to give you the information and then choose whether or not you want to look more into it if you want to assert that it's true. But
I don't need that information because all I have to do is look at the other information that's not written down because that information recording it is not evidence according to you.
I give you a short example, maybe that'll help me explain.
But the problem is if it's not considered evidence, then what is the purpose of it?
I said that it's a claim. You can definitely say, hey, they said this happened, so maybe it happened. But then you could look.
Okay, so then it is an evidence.
You could go to the temple and look for Roman arrowheads in the walls and be like, oh, here's some supporting evidence, right?
But that doesn't. Okay, so here's the thing. If all I found was the temple with Roman arrows in it, what would that prove? No documentation, no nothing.
That you found a destroyed temple with Roman arrowheads in the walls.
Yeah.
Dated time.
All I have is a temple and Roman arrowheads in it. What does that prove?
That literally that's all you have. Then all you know is that Roman arrowheads were used to shoot at the people in the temple.
Well, how do you know they shot at the people? How do you know that the temple didn't fall from a hurricane and then later on some Romans just used the remnants as target practice?
I think that all you can declare is what you actually have evidence for. Nobody said that.
Okay, so the only thing that you can claim is that there are some rocks that maybe was once a temple. We can't actually say that it was a temple. All we could say, maybe people built it up halfway and stopped. Maybe these rocks just fell into formation and that somehow Roman arrows went there. And that's the only conclusion that we can make.
I think that you can only conclude what you have evidence to support.
Can you please address the actual question I asked you?
Yeah, you asked what you could conclude from it. And I said only what the evidence supports.
So the question I asked you once again, that the only thing that we can conclude is that there's some rocks and that Roman arrows are there.
If that's all the evidence you have for, yes.
Okay, now we have a document that states that there used to be a temple there and they destroyed the temple and it was the Romans who attacked the Jews. Now what can you conclude?
You can conclude that you have a story. You went there and looked. It didn't falsify the story.
What can you conclude?
That you found arrowheads and a temple where the story.
Well, you can't even conclude it's a temple because all you have is the remnants of it. How do you know it was a temple?
Well, you said in the beginning that it was a temple, but then
the document says it's a temple. So how do you conclude that it's a temple?
Oh, well, then if the archaeologist didn't find a temple there, then you found a ruined building with arrowheads in it, and you have a story that says what maybe happened there.
So what can you conclude?
You can conclude that you don't have enough evidence to declare that's what happened.
That's saying what you can't conclude. What can you conclude?
That you found arrowheads in a ruined building.
Right. Awesome. I think that's irrational. And that's a really stupid way to look at the world. Because then you can't make any truth claims mostly ever at any point. But I appreciate your time. God bless.
Evidence, and I appreciate your time too.
freaking stupid. I almost cussed on that one. Caleb, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, how's it going? I'm 28.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong, win a taco.
So first, I'd just like to know, when it comes to resurrection, what is your definition of basically him dying and being resurrected? I guess kind of just give me briefly, I would assume he rose on the third day, something like that.
Okay, so I just say this, that Jesus Christ was put to death to the point where his body was no longer animated, and then after a significant amount of time, it was reanimated.
Okay, and by no longer animated, what do you mean by that?
There was no life in it.
Okay, no life as in
no brain firing, no blood moving, no growth, no life in it whatsoever.
Okay, and how do you know his brain wasn't firing?
Because according to Jewish standard, people had to be dead for 3 or 4 days before you come to certain conclusions. We see this here. He was put up on a cross. We only have one person in antiquity who was ever taken, we have multiple people in antiquity who was taken off the cross. We only have one person that survived, and they only survived a short period of time, so it's almost a death sentence, and he was also stabbed in the side. We also have a collection in antiquity that agrees that he did pass away, this including Josephus and Tacitus, etc.
Okay. I mean, we have those old standards, but would you agree that modern standards of death and declaring someone dead are probably a little bit more accurate in terms of like in hospitals and such?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree they are more accurate?
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, looking at the historical evidence, there's certainly, a mountain of evidence in terms of what the apostles have said, but can we really be certain that he was brain dead? I mean, they had no way to measure his brain waves. They had is it not possible that he could have had a very low pulse?
But the claims here, though, isn't that like he just got up out of a cave limping? Is that he got out of a cave like nothing happened, right? So even if he did survive it, he would not be in shape to just walk around for 40 days preaching and hanging out with people and having fish and doing these types of things.
Okay, so the claim is that he had completely died. We're just going to assume, okay, he was fully dead.
And then when we're not assuming, that's where the data points. That's the evidence. You're positing a possibility. So without probability.
Well, I think it's just fair to say that, like, the idea that someone was fully brain dead or dead, they didn't have the same medical standards that we have in the modern era. So you can claim the evidence points to that to an extent, but I can make
a really positive claims towards this. We have nobody in antiquity at all who ever survived the crucifixion. Again, we have Josephus recording how he personally asked the Roman emperor to take down 3 of his friends he noticed crucified. 2 of them died.
Sure, but
and one of them only lived for a short period. One of them only lived for a short period of time. This is almost a definitive execution method. And then there's the also fact that he was stabbed in the rib. And then doctors have reported that when you have that water and fluid specifically coming out, this is usually a fatal blow. So again, is it possible he survived this? Sure. Is it probable? No.
I wouldn't say it's not probable. I mean, and also just to kind of stop you there, you said, oh, no one's ever survived a crucifixion. I mean, you were literally just saying that, something just happening once and not being repeatable isn't evidence enough that it didn't happen.
Right.
So I would kind of say the same thing.
That's not, my God, can somebody, just one person argue in good faith? I'm not making the argument that makes it definitive or absolute, right? I'm saying you have no probability that he wasn't not dead, that it only looked that way, right? The swoon theory, which is widely disregarded by most scholars. What I'm saying is it's more probable that he actually died. And one of the things that raises the probability of that is that most people don't survive crucifixions. Just like it's not a high prior probability that people resurrect because most people don't resurrect. If everybody resurrected, no, we wouldn't even be contesting this, right? You agree with that? Before you go, Modern Brain came in $5 says, so guest thinks we need to doubt every death record in history. That's also a good point. But yeah, you agree with this, right? If people are resurrecting left, right, and center, we wouldn't even contest this, yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so it starts on a low prior. I agree it starts on a low prior, but I think the evidence overwhelms that low prior. So just like I think it's a low prior that somebody would survive a crucifixion, doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's a low prior. And I don't think there's any evidence that overwhelms that.
But I think when you're saying rational, you're talking about like probability, right? And if we're saying, okay, probability wise, no one has ever survived before Jesus Christ or after Jesus Christ. No one has ever survived.
Well, Jesus didn't even survive it.
Being dead, or not survive, but being dead for 3 days and then resurrecting and being completely in fine health. Like, that kind of points to what you were saying before, where, yeah, I mean, you have historical evidence that points to it. But then when you look at medical records and things that we have, the rational, at least my rational, would point you kind of towards, hey, we've observed people who actually have been declared medically dead before and have resurrected. There are instances of that. But the longest I think that they ever recorded was like a couple of hours. And even then there was still some kind of brain activity. So I think the point is you're looking.
So with Jesus, we have 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days, exactly. So my point is if that's something that has never been recorded, it's never been observed, is it not rational to believe that?
Well, it has been recorded and it has been observed with Jesus Christ.
Right. I guess I just, it's hard to trust like the medical assessment of people in antiquity compared to, what we have now. Again,
what's the medical assessment? What relevance does that make?
I think it's relevant because you basically have the ability now to look at like.
Let's just break this down, right? There's a reason that no scholar holds the swoon theory, like literally none. There's not a single one, including the ones that are anti-Christian, right? Even Bart Ehrman doesn't hold the swoon theory. But let's hold to your thing. Jesus didn't actually pass away on the cross. How would he just walk around 3 days later after having his wrists broken and his ankles broken? So hold on. Okay. So you think that somebody got 2 nails like this size, drove in between their ankles and both their wrists, and then stabbed in the center, and then had enough adrenaline to walk about for 40 days like nothing happened?
It's possible. I mean, he possibly healed to an extent. In the accounts, was it said that he had no wounds after the?
It's completely not arguing in good faith. Christopher, hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. I'm 21.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Hey, so just before anything, there's a couple of indisputable facts that we need to bring up, and that's that Jesus did live. He was alive. We have blatant historical record of that. We have record of him dying. And what I'm curious about, though, is whether or not he was resurrected. Because, like, to my knowledge, the only accounts of his resurrection come from the accounts of the apostles. And even that
Paul, James, Paul, James, and Peter as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And those were sort of reconciled as, like, what is, like, what later became church canon and, like, the Catholicism and Orthodoxy through the Council of Nicaea, and that was, like, several hundred years after the death and supposed resurrection of Christ. So what I'm curious about is, do you know, because I don't know, is there any record from other sources outside of those texts that indicate that he was not there 3 days later, like, or that it would have pointed towards that happening? Because I do not know.
No, there isn't. But what there is there's text that you would expect to see if it actually was true that he wasn't in his tomb 3 days later. So, for example, we have texts from Pliny that talk about the fact that Christians worship this person who is Jesus and refuse to give up worship on him. Right. Again, this is what you'd expect to see if he resurrected. You also see Pliny talking about how Nero persecuted and lit these Christians on fire. Again, what you'd expect to see if Jesus actually resurrected. And I'm not saying they got lit on fire, therefore it's true. What I'm saying is there was a huge growth in Christianity, so much so that Nero had a whole bunch of people to persecute in a very short period of time. So this huge growth in Christianity is also what you would expect to see if the claims are true that he actually resurrected. And this all starts on the earliest claim that in 1 Corinthians 15:3, that he died, rose 3 days later, showed himself to Cephas and the 12, and then to the 500. That's the earliest church creed we have, the earliest belief that we have in Christianity. So it's all built off that foundation. And just before you go, Ivan came in with $5, says, the Med article on the physical death of Jesus Christ looks at this in medical terms. Habermas discusses this at length. Swoon theory is not even worth discussing. And I was kind of done with it at that point. Sorry, bro, go ahead.
Oh, no worries, of course. I guess what I'm curious about in that is it, I guess, like mutually exclusive? Like, would that uptick in Christianity, like, is it only possible with a proven resurrection? Could that also not have happened with a, people believing that it happened? Because belief is a very powerful tool, and it doesn't always come from fact. You could
Absolutely.
say the same thing. Like with that, there was a very blatant rise in Islam after the Prophet Muhammad spread his teachings. But if you believe in Christianity, obviously, it's very contradictory to the teachings of Islam. So what I'm curious about is like
I'm more
I don't know if I
interested.
can I'm coming from from the perspective of a Christian. I do believe in Christianity. I'm just very curious. I
Yeah.
find myself grappling a lot with
Sure.
whether or not this is something that is, I guess, like
So
the
I'd
only
say
possible
this. I'd
idea.
say this. I'm more interested in why they believe something to be true rather than the fact that they just believe it to be true. Absolutely, people can be convinced of things that are false and fall into falsehoods and just kind of lead that life. So, for example, Paul. Why was Paul convinced is very curious to me, because we have somebody who has nothing to gain from converting to Christianity. The only argument that I've seen that has some sort of weight or value is that he would convert over guilt. But then even like guilt doesn't make any logical sense, because he could just simply leave and stop his persecution. There's a lot more logical explanations. So we have this person who's persecuting the Christians, doesn't believe them, actually is condemning them for this belief, and then somehow has this experience where he gives up everything. And he's a well-educated man. There's no scholar who denies this. He gives up everything and then is willing to himself be unalived on the claim that Jesus Christ resurrected. Why did he come to that belief? Right? It doesn't seem probable to me that he'd be willing to be executed on guilt and willing to live on a lie and try to convince people of a lie because he felt guilty. That doesn't seem reasonable or rational. And Paul seems like a reasonable and rational guy. Seems to me more likely that he actually had an experience. So that'd be like an example, right? Paul alone. We don't live or die on Paul alone. But why did the early Christians genuinely believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead? And seems to me the best explanation is that he actually did, because there is no social benefit or cultural benefit to a Jew to converting over to Christianity. None whatsoever. For one, this would be considered idolatry. It'd be considered worshiping a graven image. This would condemn them to hell in their worldview or their viewpoint. This would separate them from Yahweh or Yahweh. This would also persecute them in their culture, getting them treated as an anathema. And this also puts social pressure on from the Romans, who were all hunting and persecuting them. So it doesn't seem to me that they would convert for any personal or selfish reasons. Seems to me that they'd only convert if they had genuine reason to believe something happened.
And I think there is a very genuine belief that can happen without proving the fact. I mean, look at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. When you have people that, like, especially when like from the perspective of a Jewish person, you say if they have nothing to gain. I think while they don't have anything intrinsic and like material to gain in that, they have to gain the most key thing in human experience, and that's hope. They
had hope in
that are
Judaism.
incredibly persecuted, that have been told ever since the days of Moses that there's going to be this great Messiah that's going to come and like save their people. That's going to lead them to salvation.
If it's okay, I'm going to stop you there, because I don't think that follows, because I think they have more hope in Judaism, because in Judaism, they still had to wait for the messianic figure that would free them from Roman rule. In Christianity, the messianic figure already came and did not free them from the Roman rule.
Sure.
So I think there was more hope in staying Jewish.
But when you compare like what's happening in the Jewish world at that time, like from the accounts of the Bible, like they have churches and temples being turned into counting houses. Like anybody in that time, I believe, could have looked and saw a decline of their culture, and they see this man who, by all accounts, was an incredibly profound orator. He was a very kind person. People would want to follow him, regardless of whether or not he was the Messiah.
Well, a lot of people didn't.
Of course, and a lot of people choose not to follow science. A lot of people choose not to follow a lot of things.
Sure, but the thing is, you have to ask yourself: is Jesus is not the only messianic prophet who had a whole bunch of followers come up out of the woodworks. Every one of them were crucified, but every one of their followers died out. Why is Jesus the exception?
Well, I wouldn't say he's the exception. If you look at, like, the example I was trying to bring up is, I have absolutely no, you can very easily disprove the LDS faith. However, some of the progenitors of that faith.
Sorry. Going
To
to
their
LDS
death-
is completely irrelevant because I'm talking about in
Well-
Second Temple
Well, yeah,
Judaism.
can I follow this point? If it's completely irrelevant, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The point I was trying to make is you have these people like I think his name was like David Whitmere, like some other people like surrounding like the very very early days of this church, and to their deaths they swore that what they saw was true, like him translating the Book of Mormon and the Bible. They swore up and down that it was true even to their deaths. Like these people were tarred and feathered and murdered. And if it can happen for something that's very, very now in modern times easily disproven, unlike the Bible, I don't think it's a far cry to say that people would buy
Right.
into
So
that.
again, completely irrelevant to the topic. That's a topic switch, and we can address that. The original topic I asked you is why don't we see in early messianic times that Jesus is the only messianic preacher
Oh, I see.
that received followers after he died, because there's several others, and they also built the following, but he's the only one that passed away, and his followers continued and then also preached that he resurrected. So here's the thing, like, who was the first person to be convinced that he resurrected, and why? Because I don't think, again, there's nobody in scholarship that would say that they were lying about this. They all seem to have genuinely done it. For example, Bart Ehrman argues that Jesus had a twin. He doesn't say he actually believes he had a twin, but he says that's a better explanation than him actually resurrecting, because he can't get over the fact that they genuinely believe that they saw him rose from the dead.
That is a very good point.
Now to address your other point, right, about the other cultures, 100% people can believe in falsehoods and are willing to die for it. That doesn't make it true, but I'm more interested in why they believe it. Right? What is the best explanation for why they believe what they believe? So what's an example that you gave?
The example that I gave was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or in another context, Islam.
Okay.
Islam
Right.
is also, like, if you've read the Quran, something that's pretty easily disproven.
So hold on, before we go to the Quran, let's go to the Latter-day Saints. You know what they believe they saw? Golden tablets.
They believe he saw Joseph Smith peeking into a cap, reading I think it's like the Urim and Thummim, and translating verbatim the words of these golden plates.
So they saw Joseph Smith reading golden plates. I can believe that happened.
What can you believe that these plates that he somehow acquired from beneath the hill that were buried there by Native Americans who were actually like Jews? Like, there's a very far stretch of the imagination for the chain of events that led to him performing that translation and it being accurate.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is, like, I'm more interested in why they came to believe what they believe. So I think these people were convinced for silly reasons. They saw Joseph Smith reading some golden tablets and that convinced them. I don't think they had rational reason to believe that, right? Because that seems like a silly reason to be convinced of something, right? Just like these people with Muhammad, like, for example, they claim Muhammad split the moon. Yet we only have one source, and that's Muhammad, and then hadiths that come hundreds of years later that say he split the moon. Or sorry, hadiths that come hundreds of years later that say he split the moon. I don't think it's rational to believe that, because I don't think the evidence is overwhelming and seems more likely to be a falsehood. So I 100% believe that these guys saw Joseph Smith do these things, but why they concluded that he's a prophet is beyond me.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for your time. All in all, I think you presented far better arguments than I did, and walking away from this, I would generally believe that it is completely rational to believe that Christ, was resurrected. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you.
No problem, man. Thank you for the cordial conversation. God bless, and have yourself a great day.
You as well.
Bye. Oh, I almost kicked. Sorry, Logan. I accidentally kicked you when I was trying to kick him, but he left, and it was an accident. And I'm sorry. If you want to come back, I'll get you back up. That was an accident. 100% my fault. 100% my fault. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
I'm 44.
All right, bro. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong when it's taco.
I gotta preface it with a question. Have you ever bought anybody a taco?
Not because of this talk, not because of the debates, but about people tacos.
So, I mean, in this setting, obviously, like, have you ever bought somebody a taco? Because, I mean, you do this every day for hours. Have you ever bought anybody a taco?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Right. So if you're here for armchair psychology, I'm not interested.
I didn't say anything about armchair psychology. I was just curious.
I
So
didn't say you
I
did,
have
right?
to
It seems
start.
that you're kind of like judging my character, right? Rather than addressing the argument. If that's what you're willing to do,
Just
I'm more than
curious.
happy to put you back down in the comments.
Just curious if you ever actually bought anyone a taco in
That's
this
fine, but it's the
setting.
yeah, that's what I thought kind of comment, right?
Right. So you're the only one that can be snarky, or is that
All
how
right.
this
God bless,
works?
man. Have yourself a great day. Appreciate you coming up. Like I said, I'm not interested in bad faith discussions today. Yes, baby. Do I want little ones? Yeah, I could do little ones. Do you want them?
It's making me personalized.
But do you want them in yours?
No, I don't really like tomatoes.
If they're little ones, yeah. If they're big ones, no.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Also, you said I'm the only one that can be snarky? Yes. Yeah. This is the Snarky John show. No onions, someone said. I agree. Hello, how are you? And just real quick, how old are you?
Hey, John. How are you? My name's
Good, man.
40.
The background music. Is there any way we can? I don't want to get taken down.
Okay. Is that okay?
I can still hear it.
Is that okay?
I can't have it up, man. Like at all. It's got to be like gone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone. Okay.
All right. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. All right, man. It's rational to believe that Jesus resurrected. Prove me wrong. Win a taco.
Okay. No worries. I would like to define rational. Would you say it will mean it makes sense that it isn't crazy to believe?
Yeah, I'd say like the colloquial term is based on an accordance with reason or logic. And then the way I've been using it is it's not ad hoc or arbitrary, which would coincide with reason or logic.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Because the way when you say it to me translates to just simply just makes sense that it isn't that is not crazy to believe. If you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah,
I've got a
that's fine.
question.
That definition's fine.
Yeah. I've got a question. Do you mean it makes sense because people saw him, or because his followers were willing to die for it?
Yes.
Or because
Both.
something changed after he died?
Yes, all three.
Okay. Then does that mean you believe it too? Or are you saying others had a reason?
I genuinely believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And I think it's rational. I think it's a rational belief.
Okay. You see, to me, right, resurrection isn't like waking. Resurrection isn't like waking from sleep. It means he died and then came back to life fully.
Yes. Yeah.
Not as a ghost. This is how I articulate it, if you hear me out. Not just in memory, his body and soul became alive again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like new life, different. It's like a new life, a different life.
Yeah. So what's your
You know what I'm
argument?
saying? Yeah. So what do you think happened to Jesus after he died?
Completely.
And what would it mean if he really came back? So I wrote this down while I was waiting for you.
So not interested in that kind of conversation. Robin Hood came 4.99. Just came across your stream, loving it. You would be welcome for the barbecue anytime. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate that. Again, I'm more interested in the topic on whether or not it's rational to say that he resurrected.
Okay, then.
Not what it means
then
if he did.
Then this is it. Then this is my closing one. Then this is my statement here. If he really rose, then everything he said matters.
All right, man. I
He
appreciate
said
your
he's
time.
the way, the truth, and the life. So if he
All right, that's it. That's all we got in the queue. There's no one else in the queue right now on either side, so probably a good time to end it. The wife's cooking dinner, cooking calzones. Probably a good time to move on. I kind of appreciate the no nonsense approach, right? You could tell when somebody is being in good faith and someone's not being in good faith. And yeah, I might do this again in the future. Sometimes it's good to have the no faith people up here because it's good for views. Just two people yelling at each other is always good for views. And like that one guy who was arguing in bad faith says, I'm only doing this because it's my job. Yeah, sometimes we got to do stuff because it's our job. Santos came in with $1.09, says, what do you mean I can't change the topic? What? Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. You're being satirical. Yeah, everybody, that's the thing. Everybody kind of came up and just wants to goalpost shift to different topics. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this point. It's like, yeah, it's rational to believe this, but there's some logical conclusions that people come to that kind of are not rational when you do believe this. And that's where they want to jump. So like people will go like, well, that one guy earlier, he was like, if you believe Jesus Christ resurrected, then you have to believe everything in the Old Testament. And therefore there's some things in the Old Testament that never happened. And so therefore you have to throw it all at Christianity. It's not necessarily true, right? Like you can logically, and it's not me, I do believe in the Old Testament. You can logically, right, disregard the whole Old Testament and still believe Jesus Christ resurrected. And I just think this is more interesting, personally, to like get into the nuance of specific topics. So for example, Modern Brain came in and said, fun fact, calzone in Spanish means underwear. That is a good fact. I'm about to eat some underwear. There's some debate topics that are way too broad that happen all the time. So you'll see like, what is it? Is Christianity true? That was a debate topic that Alex O'Connor did with that one guy. I forget what it is. That is such a broad topic that no Christian should ever take as a formal debate. As an informal debate, sure, you can go wherever you want. But as a you okay out there? My wife's losing it. As an informal debate, sure, but as a formal debate, you should never do it because it's so broad. What do you mean by true? What happened in Christianity? Like you could say, well, it's true that Jesus Christ resurrected, but it's not true that the other people outside Matthew's tomb resurrected. So what do you mean by true? It's too vague. But if you get to a very specific point, pinpoint, right on the head. For example, there's debates that happen where it's like, is the Gospel of John historically reliable? Not are the Gospels historically reliable? Not is the Bible historically reliable? Because again, it's too broad. Because you could prove that, for example, John is historically reliable, but maybe not the book of Isaiah. Maybe the book of Isaiah isn't historically reliable. It's too broad. But if you could focus on, is John historically reliable? Maybe we'll do a topic on that. That's more interesting because then you can get to the nuance of what John recorded. What's up?
I'm listening to you, but it's delayed, so I only just got to the underwear part.
Oh.
Don't give me that.
That's what she was laughing at. She was laughing at my underwear. Not the first time. Anyways, still no people have hopped up in the queue since I started ranting, so that's probably a good point to end it then. Probably a good point to end the live. Baby, somebody said in the chat that I'm rude. I thought I was very polite today. I thought today was one of my, I think my rudeness just comes from being firm. I've been much more rude than today. How was I rude today? Didn't cuss anybody out, didn't call them down. I called one person stupid. That was the case. But he was kind of being stupid. No, I think I'm going to end it. What are we've been going, 3.5 hours. It's a good spot to end it. I think the approach led to much less possibility of rudeness. Yeah, it was good. It was good. When is the next live stream? I might go live again this weekend as a hangout. There's some things I want to test. I got Abby set up over there done, so I want to maybe test it if she's willing. We'll see. But yeah, if not, I'll be live again on Monday. And again, I need your guys' prayers because like I said, I was going to make a big investment on the channel, and I did. I made a huge investment on the channel, and we're going to see if it pays out. It's a 6-month process. I'm not going to go too much into it now, but I need y'all pray for me because like if this investment doesn't pan out, bro, I'm going to be panhandling for them super chats. Christ's Life came in with $2, says, oh, I came at the end. I'll go back and watch it. It's good to see you, bro. Definitely go back and watch it. Kyber came in with $10, says, this is to indicate to the ops that the chat isn't biased towards you. John, you're a big poo-poo head. God bless you, brother. Yeah, bro, what's the that makes me feel a certain way. Makes me feel a certain way. Hurts my feelings. And then Christ's Life came again with $2. Says, Kai, Amatel, Payne, and Jida, you said that for real. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. What a showman. Thank you. Also, can we talk about, I got my lighting on point today. Looks so good. Looks real crisp. Looks real crisp. You got a little shadow here, so maybe I gotta move it, but outside of that, looks solid. All right, we'll do a little prayer and a little plug, and then we'll move on. Hey guys, we're going to end on TikTok earlier. Then we always hang out on YouTube a little bit later. So if you want to keep watching, if you have any more questions, you can come over to YouTube and we'll chat for a little bit over there. Link is in my bio. But yeah, let's do the prayer. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we also forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Lord, thank you for these beautiful conversations. Thank you for so many cordial people that came in. Lord, we had a few hiccups, but hey, that's part of life. That's part of the game. I ask that you bless everybody that came in today, including those that came against us, including those who are not in good faith, and including those who are really against us and really just, have a despised nature towards you. Lord, I still ask that you bless them and you walk with them. I ask that you bless Brian and bless his dog, bring him into the knowledge of you and into salvation. Lord, I ask that if we're wrong, you correct us. If I'm wrong, you correct me and put me back on the right path, that you allow the Holy Spirit to move through us, that you forgive us of our sin, that you're patient with us, and you always give us grace. Give every Christian in this chat the opportunity to share the gospel and share the gifts that they have. Make them aware of their gifts, Lord. Allow us to submit to you and trust that your will is ultimately what we need. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Hallelujah. God is good. All right, guys, go follow me on all platforms. Links are in the bio. My primary channel is the YouTube channel, so please make sure that you follow me on there. Subscribe, like, do all the comments, things that you need to do. If you want to support me and support my ministry, you can do so on Patreon. Link is also in the bio. Patreon gets early access to content. I put out about 2 videos a week. So if you want to see those videos, put them out. And if you want to follow me on YouTube, we do hangout sessions on Tuesday and Thursday now, where we're just watching videos and doing reacting and things like that, where it's not debate. So if you want to be part of that, you have to subscribe to me on YouTube. And if you want to watch those videos later, you got to be a member. I know we're gatekeeping certain things, but just the hangouts are for members only. Everything else that I think is the good and fruit, meat and potatoes of the channel will always be out there for free for those that need it. Robin Hood came in with $4.99, says, don't go bankrupt now that I just found you. It's all about me. Don't worry, we won't go bankrupt. The Lord is good and the Lord provides. I'm just saying it'd be a bit of a hiccup. All right, everybody on TikTok, we will see you all again Monday. Unless you want to hang out on YouTube, then I'll see you in a couple seconds. Have a great night. One thing that's baffling me lately, that's just like blowing my mind, is the amount of viewers that we're getting, but how little callers that we get. Like, we had a fair amount, but like I remember getting like a huge amount of, just on TikTok, we get a huge amount of viewers, and then I would have a full queue, just full. But for some reason on YouTube, we get a huge amount of viewers and the queue is not full. Like, not relatively speaking. We'll have like 5 or 10 maybe in there, and then we'll have like, especially on the short section, we'll have like 500 people watching. Gabriel came in with $5, says, I got into this channel from your Jubilee debate and it's been a big blessing. So God did good out of it, even if you think it failed. Hey, dude, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you're here from the Jubilee debate. That's huge. I think God can work with our failures. That's one of the things I prayed about beforehand. I said, Lord, even if I mess this up, I'll allow you to work through it. And you can do anything despite me. So I think that's God's work there, even though I definitely messed up the Jubilee debate. Big John Steele, you seem like you had a religious experience before. I have, yeah. I'll call in next time. I couldn't get my mic working this time around. Absolutely, Sean. We'll talk to you again next time. People are scared to click the link. Maybe, yeah, fair. You think you'd get a little bit more. Robin Hood came in with $1.09, says, how do I call? There's a link in my bio, right? Down below in the description. You know what? That is my bad, Robin. You're actually right. I forgot to pin a comment that explained that. So that's probably why we didn't have as many people in the queue this time. So yeah, it's in my description. That is my bad. You're right about that. And then Christ of Life Cam says, I'll come up and LARP as a Muslim for you. Don't do it, bro. I hate LARPing. I know you're joking because you said joke, but bro, devil's advocate debaters, I got mad at Than once because he did it. And I didn't even know it was Than. I was ready to unfriend him 110%. 110%. I was ready to unfriend him. I had to be told early, his chat also. Yeah. Agree, Mello. I'm scared to click the link, so I'd never come up. Fair enough. Hey, listen, I have no disrespect towards that. If you're watching and you are nervous about coming up on a public platform, no pressure at all. 100%. I get it. What gets me is the keyboard warriors. If you're in the chat talking crap, hop up. Why have all of a sudden am I getting a whole bunch of TikTok chats come in? What the? Oh, I know why. I know exactly why. Hold on. We got to end it because it scrolled on to the next person. That was wild. Just a random. You know what's weird? I think it was Dean's live. Not even Jesus' own disciples saw him being born or resurrected at all. Well, they saw his resurrection. Can we ask Bible-related questions? Sure, if it's quick, that's no problem. I think it's less effort to make a TikTok. I hate TikTok. Honestly, I cannot wait until I'm done with it. BJ's. Than destroyed you. You finished, boy. Than would destroy me in almost any debate. Actually, I beat Than in a debate once. Is whether or not furries had rights. I took the side of the furries. A Crisis Life came in $2. Says also here's the last part of my jizya for jizya for the week. Thank you, sir. Don't forget to pay your jizya, guys. Why do I believe in evolution? Here's the thing. I have changed my viewpoint on evolution. I am now agnostic. I'm agnostic on evolution. I'm not claiming a positive anymore. I do not know if evolution is true. So I'm agnostic. I've actually been waiting for a couple people to go live when I have time, so I can talk to them about it. I want to talk to Planet Peterson about it and see what he has to say. And there's another guy I've been waiting to talk to too, that I'm working on a syllogism I want to challenge him with. I was going to do next time I saw Ian live, I was going to bring it up to him, see if he could poke holes in it. That I feel divinity called to debate on stream, or just tried it to see. Debate, I fell into the debate randomly. So I was 100% called to start on TikTok. 100% called to start on TikTok. I had this strong calling, this strong feeling that I had to share the gospel. I had to find a way to do it. And everybody in my personal life was drove nuts, absolutely drove nuts with me talking about Christ. They're getting real mad at me. They're like, okay, John, that's enough. We get it. You love Jesus. Shut up. And I think every new Christian goes through that where they just cannot shut up about Christ. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's also an annoying thing. So then I was like, okay, I'm really called to do this. I'm like, I have to do it. And so like I started doing TikTok, and then I really felt the Holy Spirit moving through me, and the TikTok blew up. Like it's out of woodworks. I went from like 0 followers to 140,000 followers in like a week. It was crazy. And I was getting 7,000 people watching my lives. Like I was popping off at the time. And I didn't really know a whole lot. So I actually had Jordan. He helped me a lot. He would be in the bottom corner and he would help me with like the really knowledgeable stuff. And I was more into like preaching the gospel at the time. But because of the nature of TikTok, too many people came up and they'd start challenging everything I said, and I would get confused and I'd be like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to say this. And because of this, I just started researching and studying and getting into it a lot more. And to the point where I was like, I could defend my faith, and it just kind of became a debate thing. And then I saw a lot of fruit coming from debate. There was actually a few times I planned to quit. And the reason I wanted to quit is because I am now, I'm really good at handling now. But before I couldn't handle the ridicule that you would get. So a lot of people, they'd make comments about you and they make videos about you and they talk crap about you and then talk about how dumb you were. And then all of a sudden I'd make a video and I'd try to respond to somebody in a very polite way. Like I'd say, hey, this is not what we believe. This is what, and I was really trying to be charitable with like responses. And then they would make a response to me. Christ's Life says similar to Shamunian's testimony. Hey, fair enough. So they would make a response to me and then they would just rip me apart. Like who was it that did that to me first? It was, what was her name? I'm trying to remember her name. She was a girl. She did, for a while, she did anti-Christian TikTok. She stopped doing it. Burke. I feel like her name was Burke. She was one of the first people who did this to me. So I made a video about her. I'm like, hey, listen, this is what we actually believe. This is the thing. And she made a video response back to me, ripping me apart. And I got something wrong. And she was right to correct me on it, but she didn't do it in a charitable way. And I got, thousands of people, it felt like, coming at me, just tearing into me. And then this happened for like a season. And so I was like, I'm going to quit TikTok. And then a friend of mine told me that it's like, hey, God called you to something you're not allowed to leave till he calls you to something else. So this became something I had to overcome. Now, doesn't faze me when people like talk crap about me. I'm like, okay, whatever. Just keep going. But yeah, that's one of my stories, I guess. I don't know where I was going with that. Somebody asked a question. I went a train of thoughts and now I'm lost. Am I getting blocked? No. Ray apologizes? No. Who was it? I think it was Christy Burke. I think it was her. And this is back when I was like a new Christian. Would send zeal or something, my bad, bro. What? What's up, bro? How you doing? Or something like that. Oh, super chat. Okay. I was curious how you got into this. Always fascinated by how God calls people. Hey, yeah, it was you. You asked the question. Guys, Bert Cam right there. Just chilling. Is that why so many sophists call and are mad as heck already? There's a lot of sophistry going on. A lot. Yeah. Who shaves their arms? That's weird. I mean, girls do, I guess. We can see you, Dracula. Sorry, can't type properly. Keyboard is naff. You're all good. I didn't hear what she said. Oh, you're getting blocked from super chat servers. That's okay, man. Just watch. I mean, if you're really inclined, you can do the PayPal, but obviously no pressure.
Money.
I said girls do not shave their arms.
Some girls do.
Well, it's a bad idea.
Why?
Because you then you gotta do it forever and it grows back thicker.
That's a myth.
Well,
it's a wives' tale.
Do it forever, though,
It's a wives' tale.
prickly.
It's a wives' tale.
But you still have
Do you
to
not
do
shave
it
your
forever.
legs forever?
Yeah.
Well, you don't think that some girls don't do the same thing with their arms?
They shouldn't.
Well, why? Based off what logic?
This is dumb.
See, that's how arguments work with my wife. Right there. Because it's dumb, and then she just walks away. That's it. That's it. Christ of Life came in with $5. Says, my super chat on behalf of Dracula, also Abby, is wrong. Amen. Hallelujah. All right, guys, I'm going to go now. I appreciate you hanging out today. I think it was a good live, a fun live. Let me know. You can send me a message maybe on Discord. Also, join the Discord. We need more people in there talking to each other. PayPal is bigjohnsteele@gmail.com. But again, no obligation, my friend. Anyways, what was I saying? Join the Discord because they need friends. But yeah, let me know if you prefer me taking the no BS route or if you like to see me do a little bit more of the, hey, let's talk to some idiots because it's entertaining. Discord link is in my bio as well, in my link tree. God bless, guys. Have a great night.